ones on here, but we'll go ahead and get this started. You okay with that? Yep. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Prior to the start of the Des Moines City Council meeting, we have a quick meeting for the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board. Let's call that meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk to please take roll.
County.
Here.
Coleman. Here. Boson.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Westergaard.
Here.
Mandelbaum.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item 2 on the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board agenda is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended.
Moved.
It's been moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is approving a 2080 agreement with the City of Ankeny for payment of administrative costs of Section 8 program. We'll open it up and see if there's anybody here that would like to speak to the Section 8 program that the city administers for the City of Ankeny.
I'll move it.
Item's been moved. Any discussion? I ask everybody to vote.
Seven yes.
Item 4 is approving the significant amendment to the Des Moines Municipal Housing Agency 2018 Admissions and Continuing Occupancy Plan, Chapter 13, to be in compliance with the Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD public housing over income statutory requirements. Is there anyone here to speak to this item?
Move item 4.
Items 4 has been moved. Ask everybody to vote, please. Any discussion?
Seven yes.
All right. Last item is a motion to adjourn.
Move.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. We said adjourn. Prior to the start of our city council meeting this evening, we're going to have some words with our own city council member, or from our own city council member, Chris Coleman. Mr. Coleman, would you like to everybody stand?
Yeah, do you mind? Thank
If
you.
everybody would stand at this moment to participate with us, would you ask you to do so at this time?
Thank you for joining us. Bow our heads for a minute in quiet reflection. We're coming off a weekend where many people from around the country said very nice things about Des Moines, and it's always good to take a moment to give thanks for the wonderful community that we live in, the great neighbors so many of us have, the professional staff that lead our city, all the frontline workers, especially the first responders, our police and firefighters, those in our parks and public works that do so much to contribute to a high quality of life. And so I ask you to join me in a prayer and a good thought for their well-being, their safety, and that we bless their work at the city with goodwill and long happiness. We're very thankful and appreciative of their work. So for the workers of the city of Des Moines, I give thanks, and I know the council does as well. Thank you.
Also, prior to the start of our meeting this evening, we have two people who have been serving the city as elected officials for now over 5 years, and I would like to present each of them with their service awards. Councilmember Joe Gatto. Joe? And Councilmember Bill Gray.
Wow, how fast have been 5 years.
So we want to thank them for their service and look forward to many more. We It is now time to call our city council meeting to order, and we'll do so, and I will ask the clerk to please call roll.
County,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Boson,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Westergaard,
Here.
Mandelbaum,
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. A couple of quick consent items. Item 4B was withdrawn. The inspections are incomplete. Item 5 was withdrawn. Inspections on that one are also incomplete. 6 is corrected as roll call. Item 13 and 13A was withdrawn by the city manager for further study. Item 26 is corrected, roll call and council communication. There also is an extra item that was added, request from Councilmember Mandelbaum to speak regarding sidewalks along Fleur Drive, which will be extra item number 3. Unless anybody has anything else, I would,
Mayor, can I make a
please.
personal, and I think the extra item 1 was actually asked for by Councilmember Boson. Is that right?
Yeah, I asked for one.
There's a representative from Meredith here that has sent us a letter on this, and I know that he has to leave in short order. Is there any way that we could take that up early?
Number 2. Number 1 was,
Yeah, no, she put up number 2.
She
Number
put
1
number-
was.
Number 1, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Item number 1 is in relationship to
the
the
courthouse.
federal courthouse design. Somebody from Meredith is here. Just wondering if you'd allow that to come up earlier in the agenda.
Yeah, well, let's get through the consent, and then we can maybe move right to a couple of those items.
Extra item.
Because I believe there has been a request also, possibility to move up item 2.
Item number 2.
Okay, so, if we could have a motion,
Move.
item 2, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda. These tonight are items 3 through 39. These are routine items and are generally enacted by one roll call vote without separate discussion unless somebody either from the audience or a city council member asks to have one polled for clarification or further discussion. This evening, item 4C, 4L, 4W, Councilmember Coleman votes no. Item 15, Councilmember Mandelbaum votes no. Item 29, Councilmember Mandelbaum wishes to speak. And item 30, Councilmember Mandelbaum wishes to speak.
Mayor,
Yes.
I don't need to speak on item 30.
Okay. So just 29.
Yeah.
I will ask anybody in the audience, are there any other items, again, 3 through 39, that anybody would like to have pulled for further discussion?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move item 3.
All right, and ask everybody to vote, please.
7 yes.
All right, that quickly takes us to item 29. Item 29 is approving urban renewal development agreement with Merle Hay Investors LLC, Elizabeth Holland, CEO for rehabilitation of existing Merle Hay Mall property, and proposing, repurposing, the Sears site. Council Communication number 19-140. Councilmember Mandelbaum.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure one item that maybe came a little late in this process. I think there's a willingness to address it, but want to make sure that it's flagged appropriately, and that is the property owner, as part of this agreement, has been working on DART access. That is part of the agreement. The one thing that was not included that we would like to see included is that the DART access is capable of allowing a shelter to be placed wherever that permanent DART access is. And just wanted to make sure that that was included as part of this process. I don't know if we need, I don't know that we need to amend what we're doing, but maybe get, if there's anyone from the building owner present, a commitment Sorry, I didn't see you there, Liz.
No, all good, thank you. I'm Elizabeth Holland, I'm the CEO of Merle Hay Investors LLC. It's a very good question, and we are certainly committed to making sure that the location is both proximate to the building, which is the most important, as well as having a separate shelter so that passengers can wait at the bus stop.
Great.
The new bus stop and even the temporary bus stop that we're talking to Dart about will all be within easy, accessible access for all customers.
Great. Appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that was clarified. So that's all I have on this item. Thank you.
Well, and Scott, you and I have been talking about this for quite some time. There was two separate plans that really were the same plan. One had an $80,000 price tag, and the other one had a $230,000 price tag. So I think those things just kind of fell by the wayside. I think we need to get those resurfaced and get a plan put in place that we can get this moving forward. Because having them park over at Haymarket Mall and have to cross that street and the parking lot just to get to the mall is troublesome. So, and we want to make sure Liz gets all the business she can.
And thank you very much, not just to Mayor, but to everyone in the City Council. Councilmember Grays, our Councilmember Coleman, and the city staff have really worked tirelessly on this. So I'm very grateful to all of you for your time and commitment and willingness to meet with me for the past year.
Well, and Liz, thank you for all the time that you and your team have committed. We're looking for some great outcomes out there, and we know that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is contingent upon those great outcomes, so let's keep working together. That's an important piece of the Northwest Side, and hopefully we're going to have some opportunity to work in some of the other areas of town, but I think this will be a good model on how to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Do you want to
If we
Okay.
could have a motion.
I'll make the motion. Move item 29.
7 yes.
All right, that completes the consent agenda. I'll ask the council real quickly, do you want to move through the ordinances real quickly, or should we go straight to the extra items? Anybody? Mr. Coleman?
Extra item, we need to get,
I'd maybe prefer to give Art a second on our agenda. Now, take up extra item 1.
Okay.
And we could take both of them up, there's a lot of people here.
All right. Let's move quickly forward with extra item 1. It's a request from for council to review and approve a letter to Commissioner Dan Matthews at the U.S. General Administration regarding the federal courthouse design. Quickly, Mr. Manager, do you want to make a quick comment on this? We've been working on this with the council and for how many years now? Okay.
1 or 2.
Not more. Actually, I'll be very brief. Obviously, we have received information on the design of the GSA building, the federal courthouse across the river, and in summary, it is actually not meeting the expectations that were put forth and the understanding of what the building could be from a pedestrian standpoint, from a citizen wanting to take part in the Riverwalk and have an opportunity to step off the Riverwalk into more public space and potentially even some retail at the site. So this letter would essentially specify that we do not feel the design is meeting those standards, and there is considerable concern about what may get value engineered out of the current design that's not even satisfactory. So I think that kind of summarizes what the letter says.
Okay. We have a speaker. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Art Sluzark. I'm Chief Communications Officer of Meredith Corporation, 1716 Locust Street. Meredith is proud to have been a contributor over the years to the revitalization and development of downtown Des Moines, not only at our Western Gateway project and our campus up there, but also in the $2 million contribution we made to building the Meredith Trail to connect Grays Lake with the principal Riverwalk. As you know, we have sent a letter to the GSA and to government officials opposing the location of the federal courthouse on the former Y site. And I'm just here to reiterate our opposition to that for many of the reasons that Scott mentioned. It just does not fit in with the character of what we want to see there, something that can pedestrian-friendly, can interact with the Riverwalk, and also something that can be sort of a signature. It's a signature site there, and we'd like to see a signature building, and something that hopefully will generate revenue for the city. I understand there's a letter in front of you, and my only comment on that, on behalf of Meredith and the business community, is I hope that maybe you would table that letter and we could develop the strategy a little bit further. It seems strange to have correspondence back and forth on a design project when we really don't even want the project there in the first place. So I ask you to consider that and when you do your deliberations. Thank you.
Art, thank you very much.
Thank you, Art.
Anybody else here? Any comments from council? Connie?
I'm kind of new to the courthouse issue, and based on the review that we had, it doesn't seem to meet the criteria for our design, but it also doesn't seem to meet their criteria for space, when they're not going to be able to get everybody in their own space that they currently have. So I think there's more than a design issue that I would be concerned if I was them. And for us too, it becomes where those people go. I know they have other aspects that they could do or hold on, but I just think it doesn't really meet their criteria also. And disappointed in not only design, but the aspect of not being able to get everybody all together, which I thought was one of their reasons of doing it.
Anybody else?
I know the discussions that we've had with them wasn't very favorable just recently. Unfortunately, I believe the message that we've all gotten, including you, Mr. Mayor, from our congressional staff, is $10 million has been invested into this site of our federal tax dollars, and I don't think they're going to walk away from this site and put it anywhere else. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going to listen to much of what we have to say. I think they're going to build it. I think they're going to build it the way that they want to build it. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like this in Washington, where folks like you guys can come and speak directly to us at any point in time. Unfortunately, it really doesn't work that way, and that is really sad to say that it doesn't. And we can write as many letters and threaten them as much as we want, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor. I know you've had those discussions with our congressional staff, and we can say we don't want you there, and we've said that, and we've tried to say that, and it's not the best site for them. But unfortunately, they don't care. And there's certain judges that work in that building that want it on that site, and I believe that they're going to put it on that site. And with a $10 million investment already, I doubt if they're going to walk away from that. So, it's sad to say. And
Chris?
I unfortunately am generally in the camp that Joe is in. I'd like to think that there would be some openness to look somewhere else, and the language that I've been using, and I think it's inherent in the letter in front of us, probably not this strong, is that, you know, we share goals for this courthouse. If it turns out that the site itself is not compatible with those goals, then we ought to look at other sites. I mean, there has to be a point in time where we come to the realization that it's not going to be the kind of courthouse that we've dreamt of. And I'd like for us to hold that as an option and, you know, ensure that, that we're fighting for our citizens. And I think we get to that in the letter that's drafted. Again, I have no problem being stronger as well. But I think a letter where we draw a firm stand that this is not the kind of courthouse we want is accomplished in the letter, and that's half of what I want to see us do. So I could vote to to pass it, I could vote to wait if there was a lot of people that thought the language should be stronger. You've been there, I think Joe pointed that out, Mayor, and maybe your observations about where we stand would help educate all of us in the
Well,
public.
anybody have any other points? Bill?
And we all sat in those meetings, and I think the most depressing side that I heard was they're value engineering this thing down to a level. Well, translate value engineering into we're making cost cuts that aren't good, and they're continually doing that. I see this thing spiraling down even worse. I think we might just have a couple wooden matchsticks up there to hold up, call up a federal courthouse. I don't know, Joe's right, we can cry and bellyache all we want to, and they don't care. They don't care about Des Moines at all. Des Moines is so far off their radar that they could care less. But I would like to see that we just at least let them know, hey, look, don't devalue this thing anymore. Let's make sure that we've got something that everybody can be proud of, or let's take another look at it.
I would add, I just think that it's important that everybody is aware that this is $136 million that they're going to build for a new courthouse when they have something that's adequate right now. I mean, we were there last week. I just am amazed that our federal government is really going to spend $136 million when there are so many other things that we need. I would be in support of sending a stronger letter. If they don't care about us anyway, what do we have to lose? But I think we should let it be known that we oppose the site. I mean, there's a better place to build a courthouse than right there. And the design that they showed us was not good. I mean, it's not anything what we went to them and said, this is what we want, and they came back and just give us a box.
Yeah.
So,
I think the number that I heard that they could remodel would be 28 million, but they want to spend 136 million on a building that doesn't accommodate all the people that are in the spot that currently are. That's where I kind of have pause and would go for a stronger letter.
Anybody else? For everybody in the audience, I'm glad you're here. It was interesting when we had our first meeting with them after a year or so of them looking around and thinking about it, and then saying that they're going to move forward when Des Moines, after over 20 years, got moved up in the pecking order for a investment in the federal court system after they already had built one in Cedar Rapids. This is not the only courthouse that they're building. They're building them all over the country, and they have new specs, so say GSA and the judges, not only here but in Washington, about what it means and how they protect the citizens and the defendants and the judges and everybody, and how all that works. It's interesting that the original meeting we had almost this many people in the room, and we all said, you wanted 3 to 5 acres. This site isn't 3 to 5 acres. We've got a number of sites for you to consider, and they did. They looked at all of them. And then they came back and said, well, we've decided on this site. By the way, we bought it. And so it's a little interesting to watch how the process works, but they also have spent a lot of time with us, showing us different federal buildings around Washington, D.C., and pointing us to other places around the country that accommodated some of the needs of the cities in which they exist. And so we took that to heart and asked them to then consider in their design perspective how it meets the public. We've got a river walk out here that, as Art Sluzark just pointed out, is very important to the community, all members of the community, no matter who they are, what their income, what their age, enjoy, we think, the river walk, and are able to, without charge, walk around it, be part of it, and have a quality of life that otherwise wouldn't be available had that not been created. We are hopeful that a place like this could also have some public space that would be supportive of some citizen activity. And that's what we pushed for, and we thought that at least 3 sides of it should have a nice front for our citizens. And I think that our letter very expertly points out that it doesn't meet those standards and qualifications if they are to use that site. So we are, I think, very strongly and very pointedly, Mr. Manager, have written a letter that details what we think to be at least 4 or 5 of the flaws in this particular project that we thought that they were going to meet. And so we are trying to our best of our ability to send them a letter that communicates that. I will tell you that they are moving forward very quickly. And so I'm somewhat worried that if we put off sending a letter, that they're going to be that much further down the track and not take a lot of input. And I appreciate our business community and citizens, any letters that you might send that would be supportive of doing the project right to meet the needs of our citizens, not only just the defendants and the people that occupy the courthouse, but the people that walk by it every single day and what we think to be a very important critical piece to the quality of life in the city of Des Moines, and that's the Riverwalk. And this occupies an important place in it. So at this moment, if somebody has a motion, I think we've got to get something off, and we've got to get it off very quickly, Mr. Manager, given the meetings that we've had with them, so that at least we put the stake in the ground that here's our concerns with the current project as it is, and taking in regard all the comments that have been made by some of the others that have come in. Keep in mind that we've been trying to have interesting discussions with them, and we've thought meaningful discussions for now going on, I think, 4 years. So here we are with them about to stick a spade in the ground, and they've already have sunk costs in this of in excess of $10 million, and we think probably it's sizably more than that.
Could be, yeah.
But at any rate,
I'll make a motion to move item 1, approve the letter that you have. I wish we can send a different message. I wish that they would have moved down in the Market District and picked that site, because that would have been a perfect spot for them, and they would have had plenty of room to do it. But I believe when our congressional leadership, and one of them has been there a great many years, when they say that the ship has already sailed and it's going to get built on the Y site, we can help you with the design, but we cannot move this. I think we better take that to heart, no matter what letter, and we better think about the design, because I do not believe they're going to move this to a different site, because if I did, I'd be the loudest up here, because I've got a great spot down in my ward in the Market District that I've lobbied for. I've wanted to put it there, and it would have been perfect, and it would have helped with development down there. And unfortunately, I think some of the folks in the leadership of our judicial portion of a federal government here wants to be on that site, and they're not budging from it. So I moved item 1 for the letter that you've got about the design, and we can vote on it, and if it fails, then you guys can write whatever letter you want.
okay. We have a
Joe,
motion.
Mayor, I got just it's my understanding, Art was here on behalf of the business community, and Meredith particularly, that there's a meeting coming up that the GSA is presenting to there. Is it possible that we be part of that meeting, share our concerns there, and have a chance to rewrite the letter coming off of this? I mean, I think we're in a little bit of a bind, as the mayor points out. They talked about, breaking ground in the coming months. I think time is of the essence. Our congressional delegation copied us on a letter they wrote to them, and I think we have an obligation to get back to them. But I'd like to know, I'd like to be real public, that our perception on the courthouse could evolve. If we continue to not get satisfactory, advancement in the kind of building we want, and I would say that has a lot to do with how it functions with the neighborhood down there and the Riverwalk. I'd like to go on record in the near future that I'm for a different site. And I think tonight is the first step towards that if we don't get any other action.
Well, and keep in mind that we did that 4 years ago, Mr. Coleman, and you were there.
I know I was
And
there.
we said it then, and we've been saying it ever since. And so I think we ought to say that now, but in the meantime, we know what's going on, as Mr. Gatto has pointed out. We've been told by those in Washington that the ship has sailed, and we ought to work on some sort of a conversation that enhances the design at the site which was selected, and they'll work with us to try to make that happen. I wish that we could have met all their goals early on in terms of the size and the site and the catalytic effect that they claimed that they were hoping that it would have. I'm disappointed that what they have said, and this project, I don't see being as much of a catalyst as they promised, and that, quite frankly, it seems to be more of a block. But I think we've got to work within the system that it is, and I think that the business community ought to go ahead and send whatever other letters they can to support their concerns as well. And,
When are they meeting?
Will we be a part of that conversation, Scott, on the 5th at the partnership where the business community is going to get their first glimpse at what we've seen and be a part of the discussion?
So the mayor is part of that executive team, and...
Is it just the executive, or is it the full board?
I think it's a little broader than that. I think they were inviting the board
I know
as
I was
well.
invited.
Yeah.
could be the
I'm on the
board. Well,
board.
then,
Yeah.
spread the truth.
Then it could be the two of you.
So then we're all
You are invited.
I got an email about it. I'm
Yeah.
not on the board.
So then we're all invited to be there.
Are you
I
DCA,
wasn't.
or are you,
No, it might be new on DCA.
That's right.
So when is the meeting?
It's April 5th, I believe.
So wouldn't it be a much,
7:30
I can't say that we have not been successful, because it seems like we haven't been successful in the place. Would it not be a stronger letter to come from both?
I think we've got to do what we need to do, and they need to say, have their voice as well. We obviously have voiced our concern
That's what I was just saying, that it
Over the
seems like
last-
they haven't
4 years. So,
listened.
48 months into it, here we are.
I remember that meeting at the Central Library where we
And none of the
stood up and
citizens wanted
said, let's not build it there, and we gave them all the reasons not to build it
And we gave
there,
them all
not
the
to
other
buy
sides.
it there, and told them not to do it, and they went ahead and picked that spot, and that's where they're building it.
No, after
We've
we
tried
showed-
to tell them not to put it
After
there.
we showed them, what, 5 sites?
Yes. And including the site that they're on and remodeling it, and they've refused to. I mean, it's not like we haven't tried.
Well, I'm not saying that people haven't, I know everybody's tried, but it's that the citizens were pretty vocal at that one meeting. This group has been pretty vocal, so I appreciate, but it's still all of our money.
Yeah, and they don't care.
Well-
That's the sad part about it. That's what's wrong with parts of government.
I think,
All
right, we've got a
I don't
motion.
want to, yeah.
There is a motion.
I don't want to lose track that the letter is strong.
It is.
Yeah.
I just think there's going to have to be a stronger message in the future, and maybe that's after April 5th.
Okay.
6 yes, 1 no.
I hit the wrong one. Oops, I hit the wrong.
All right. We were going to move ahead with item 2, but we are required to start our hearings at 5 o'clock, so we're going to quickly work through those. Takes us to item 45, and then we'll go back through the, after the extra items, which will quickly follow our hearing items. Our first hearing item, will open the hearings, is item 45. It's on the approval of the 2018 U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, the CAPER, Council Communication Number 19-111. With all of the people in the audience, Mr. Manager, you want to quickly tell them what CAPER is?
Annual report that specifically goes through the housing funding. There's city-owned housing. There are other non-housing HUD funds that are also available for demolition of blight. And essentially, once a year, we need to go through all those items.
And we need to report back to the federal government what we did with the money, and they have to kind of approve it moving forward. And it's a sort of an after-the-fact kind of a thing, but we're required to do it every year. Anybody in the audience like to make comment?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move item 45.
Seven yes.
Item 46 is on the vacation of the north-south alley right-of-way between Southwest First Street and Southwest Second Street from Edison Avenue to Columbus Avenue, and the conveyance of CS Family Properties, LLC, Corey Steiner, officer, to allow for the assemblage with adjoining properties for the redevelopment with a senior living apartments project, $5,544. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. Item 46, let's go ahead and open the hearing. Is there anybody here to speak to this item? Again, it's a vacation of an alley southwest First Street and Second Street from Edison to Columbus.
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll move 46A and B.
Seven yes.
Item 47, it's on the request from the Luther Memorial Church of Des Moines, Iowa, who's a purchaser to rezone 1101 Grandview Avenue from PUD planned unit development to R3 multifamily residential, and to amend the Grandview University West PUD conceptual plan to remove the subject property from the PUD in order to assemble it with property to the east at 1201 Grandview Avenue for expansion of the existing church at 1201 Grandview Avenue. The subject property is owned by Grandview University. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and again requires 6 votes. We'll go ahead and open the hearing on this item and ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this item. Seeing none,
Mr. Mayor, I would move item 47, 47A, and 47B.
you don't? Any discussion? Voting in process. Joe.
Sorry. Seven yes.
Item 48. These are items regarding property at 1145 and 1147 24th Street, Mulva Hill Farms, Inc., continued from February 25th, 2019. A is to amend the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow planned future land use designation from low, medium density residential to neighborhood mixed use to allow for rezoning, limited NPC, neighborhood pedestrian commercial, and expansion of off-street parking for an existing multifamily dwellings and for shared parking for nearby mixed use. B, close the hearing on the rezoning of the property from R160 low-density residential to NPC, neighborhood pedestrian commercial. C is the first consideration of the ordinance above. D is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. We'll open the hearing and ask if there's anybody here to speak to this item. Again, item 48 regarding properties up by Drake. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm the owner of the 2 properties, and at the last meeting, we talked about having a third option requiring access from 24th Street. I worked with engineering and with traffic and decided that's not really feasible. Engineering thought it'd be too hard to fit that between 2 of my properties, the driveway, and traffic thought that there's already adequate access from 24th Street on the north and south sides of 24th Street within the block, and that most parking is coming from they prefer to have parking come from the alleyway anyway, as their preference.
Okay, and just for the record, you need to give us your name and your address.
It's Robert Mulvihill, and my address is Cumming, Iowa.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Mulvihill? Thank you.
Yeah, and I followed up, and that is an accurate recounting. We had previously asked to look at those options, and I think traffic has a preference for the alleyway, so that addresses the last of the concerns that I had. So I'm comfortable moving 48A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
So does this still use the alleyway for the driveway for the food trucks? Is that what it's using?
Yes, it would use the alleyway.
Okay.
And we checked with traffic, and they actually had a preference for the alleyway.
Six yes, one no.
All right, takes us to item 49. Item 49 is on County Line Road Culvert Replacement. Resolution approving plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineers, estimate, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as Peterson Contractors, Inc., Cordell Peterson, President, $197,054.90. Council Communication Number 19-125A is approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Let's go ahead and open item 49. Anybody here to speak to this item?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll move 49, 49A.
Seven yes.
Item 50 is on the Evelyn K. Davis Park basketball court lighting. Resolution approving the plan, specifications, form of contract documents, and engineer's estimate, and designating the lowest responsible bidder is Ardent Lighting LLC, doing business as Ardent Lighting Group LLC. Jeannie Everly is president, $72,800. Council Communication Number 19-126 as approving the contract in the bond. And I will say that this item has been sought by a number of the neighborhood leaders up in that area, and as a result of the outcome of the local option sales tax, we are able to move this thing forward, and we're going to start it yet and get it done and up this summer. So I want to thank everybody that supported that tax and helps us move some of these projects forward that hopefully is a big support for the neighborhood and all the residents and the youth in the area. So let's open the hearing and ask if anybody has anything to say regarding this item.
Seeing none, Mayor, I'd like to particularly call out and thank the Amos Group that has championed this and never give it up on it. And I appreciate their commitment to this neighborhood and vulnerable people throughout the city. So if it's okay, I'll move it.
I think it's okay.
I think it's good.
But it is a great addition out there. It's, we were out there with the Summer Hoops program, and it was great to see all the kids coming out there playing their hearts out and using their time productively. So putting those lights on is going to be a heck of a great addition for the neighborhood.
And if I can just add one thing,
Please.
Martin Luther King Jr. neighborhood, we're working to get lights. They have a summer hoops program also that will be held 2 months during the summer. We've got portable lights there, but we'd really like to see an addition of lights in the future. So, thank you. I think it's a good addition to our park system.
Yep. And that was 7-0, right?
7-0.
Okay, item 51. Item 51 is on Gray Street concrete culvert rehabilitation. Resolution approving plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, designating the lowest responsible bidder is ProShot Concrete, Inc., Anthony McDougall, president, $664,250. Council Communication Number 19-131A is approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Let's go ahead and open the hearing on this item. These are, again, more projects that are designated to improve our infrastructure around the city, and of course, this is an important one over off of Gray Street, and a culvert that really needs the work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move 51 and 51A. Yes, this is an addition that needs to be done before we can go further up. So, thank you.
7 yes.
Item 52, which is on Riverview Park site improvements, a resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, designating the lowest responsible bidder as Monroe Construction Company. Patrick T. Monroe is president, $627,793. Council Communication Number 19-136A. Under that is approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Let's go ahead and open item 52 regarding the Riverview Park site. Anybody here to talk about this? Don't see anybody immediately. I just want to say that we've had a great set of neighborhood workers that have worked very, very hard on bringing some great activity back to Riverview Park, and I'm excited to see this move forward.
I am too, and unfortunately, they could not be here tonight, but I told them, don't worry about it. You know, it looks pretty solid. But so with that, I would like to move item 52 and 52A.
I also say, Linda, and you pointed out every time that everybody ought to be reminded they raised a significant amount
They
of money.
raised the
for
money. Hamburgers and hot dogs. And beer.
All right, item 53. Item 53 is on the University Avenue rehabilitation from 56th Street to 48th Street. Resolution improving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as OMG Midwest, Inc., doing business as Des Moines Asphalt and Paving. Jeffrey A. Chapman, General Manager, $727,677.05. Council Communication Number 19-138. A is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. We'll go ahead and open the hearing on this item on the University Avenue rehabilitation. Anybody here to speak to this item?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll move item 53 and 53A. This is going to be a great improvement to University, and there are good things coming in this corridor, and this will be one step in that direction.
And glad to see it came in under engineering's estimate, so I just like to help donate that in nickels, because they just can't round it off any better than that.
Linda?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want no?
No, no, I want yes. Yeah, there you go.
7 yes.
Item 54 is on the Police Academy Firing Range HVAC improvements. Reject all bids and close the hearing on the plan specifications, form of contract documents, and engineer's estimate. 2 bids received, both were way over the estimate. Council Communication Number 19-134. Anybody here to speak to this item? Seeing none,
I'll move item 54.
item 54 has been moved.
6 yes.
All right, let's note the time. The time is 5:24, and that completes the hearings. And as promised, that'll take us directly to item, extra item number 2, which is request from Iowa CCI to speak regarding a proposed racial profiling ordinance. Who's here to speak on this? All right, we see a number of people in the audience. Are some of you here to, for this particular item? I presume. How many of you are going to speak? That's the big question. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many do we have?
We have 9, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
From CCI.
And we'll remind everybody, and your participation here is very important. We really appreciate you coming down. And what we will sort of direct everybody is that we would like to hear new ideas, and if there's some stuff that is here and you see it's appropriate to any of the speakers, well, you might ask, is everybody with me on this one? And then we'll kind of get a sense of what it is. And here's Mr. 10, you're going to speak too? Okay.
Could I?
Okay, so is this 11?
2 from NAACP, Betty said.
Okay.
I'm just relaying.
Thank you.
Do you want, hey, Frank, I was just going to say that I asked this item to be added on. We had a work session this morning where people can't really speak because it's a pretty contained time. And CCI did some work sessions, or really a great community conversations last summer, and this is a reaction to some of the items that they've asked us to look at as a city. And we had a report this morning about, with the bridging the gap and tying some of the things together, and they would want an opportunity to speak. So I'll let you go ahead, since we have a few speakers.
Thank you very much for hearing from us tonight. My name is Lori Young. I'm a resident of Des Moines. I live at 2707 High Street here in Des Moines. I understand we have a lot of speakers, so I will try to be as brief as possible. I basically joined forces with Iowa CCI, and that's Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement. Back in 2014, we chose racial justice as a community priority issue and formed the racial justice team. Let me state for the record and from the beginning, we are not anti-police. We are not anti-police. We need and respect the Des Moines Police Force to protect and serve all of its citizens equally. We have logged dozens of meetings, hundreds of hours, including a few meetings with Chief Wingert and his staff in 2016 and 17 over the issue of racial profiling. We've kept the community informed and engaged every step of the way. We have learned a lot from Black residents in Des Moines, a constituency too often relegated to invisible. I am here to share my reaction publicly to what I observed at the Des Moines City Council work group meeting this morning at 7:30 a.m. First and foremost, the council and the city legal staff discussed that many of the elements of the proposed ordinance that we proposed last November to this governing body, many of those elements in our proposed ordinance are similar to and overlap with the good work done by the Des Moines Civil and Human Rights Commission Bridging the Gap project. Yes, there may be overlap, but let's be clear that what the commission has pulled together and what we have formulated after years of work on this issue are two separate things. The ordinance that we proposed in November is also backed by community input. Ooh, that's a real sensitive mic. And comes with the involvement of Councilman Mandelbaum and Councilwoman Bozen, most recently in 2018. We held 3 community meetings with over 300 residents of Des Moines in attendance, 9 hours of meeting time, dozens of manpower hours analyzing community feedback, and reviewing some alarming data that you'll hear more about in a moment from the gentleman who stands behind me. We have been to the state capitol and talked to state legislators as well on passing anti-racial profiling laws. While we have worked with our allies like the NAACP, ACLU, and Amos, who all agree with us that any racial profiling by the Des Moines Police Department is wrong and should cease, progress after 4+ years has been slow. But that is okay because we will persist. The ordinance we proposed to you in November 2018 contains 6 distinct elements reflecting what hundreds in the community are demanding. This morning, your work group discussion appeared to encourage the community to work with the Des Moines Human and Civil Rights Commission on this racial profiling issue. The commission has no authority that I'm aware of to ratify all or part of our proposal into a legally binding ordinance. They do a lot of work with a skeletal staff. They will already be taking on the intake process to receive complaints against the Des Moines Police Department, as well as handle matters of employment and housing discrimination, among many other important work they are tasked with. Let me emphasize that until we get a clear and concise response to our ordinance proposal from you, the City Council, we will not stop our efforts to appear before you, to engage with you on what the community feels is needed to fully address the issue of racial profiling. Quite the contrary, we will be like a steady drumbeat in your ear that gets louder and stronger, calling on the spirit of our ancestors who endured racism at times, even unto death, until we are satisfied. We are a coalition of Black, white, and brown citizens who are united in our aim to end racial profiling in Des Moines, and we will not be moved. Again, I represent the racial justice team of Iowa CCI and the hundreds of community members who insist that racial profiling be stopped in real and meaningful ways, not only in policy, which goes without saying, but by city ordinance, like so many other progressive and inclusive cities across America have done. It's about trust, it's about transparency, and it's about accountability. Racial profiling is real. It does happen here. Accept it, let's deal with it, and be the model city that we claim to be. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Harvey Harrison. I live at 680 Harwood Drive in Des Moines. In 2014, the ACLU published a report with a war on marijuana in black and white, a report I hope you've read. The report that showed in Iowa a black person was 8 times more likely to be arrested for possession of marijuana, in spite of the fact that blacks and whites use marijuana equally. At that same time, I was getting more and more deeply involved in the work of raising up, challenging, and transforming the systemic institutional bias against blacks in education and justice institutions in Iowa. During that same time, we learned that Iowa was the worst state, or among the worst, in disproportionality in criminalizing and incarcerating our black brothers and sisters. In Iowa, you were and are still about 13 times more likely to go to prison if you were black than if you were white. At the same time, our police department and other public officials, such as yourselves, stated that racial profiling was not a problem in Des Moines. This was also a time when mass media publications were describing Des Moines as a wonderful place to live, and we learned from other publications that Des Moines was among the worst places to live if you were black. This is still the case. Nothing has changed in this time. What the black community has always known, and what we have now clearly demonstrated by the public meetings that we've held and the data that you now have in your hands, is that these systemic injustices perpetuated against the black community still thrive. The Des Moines Public Schools have acknowledged this reality, and they're working to change it. The courts have recognized this in the juvenile justice system and are attempting to find ways to change it. The Directors' Council published the One Economy report, Building Opportunity for All, outlining and raising up the economic injustices that now still exist in Des Moines. The ACLU has just published a document called Blueprint for Smart Justice, which includes a path forward to end mass incarceration. I encourage you to look at it. You've heard and I trust listened to the stories that were given last summer of your black constituents describing their lived experience of over-policing in the black communities of Des Moines and their justifiable fear and mistrust of the police. You've watched, I trust, the video of the 2 police officers engaging in an utterly inappropriate and hostile interrogation of 2 young black men whose only offense was being on the streets of Des Moines last summer. And last week, I gave you an analysis of data that I've accumulated over the past year and a half of 4 years, collected data from the DOT, the sheriff's booking records, and the Iowa Data Warehouse of Des Moines police stops over a period of 4 years that plainly demonstrate the ongoing victimization of my black brothers and sisters, your black constituents. The data that you've looked at shows, among other things, for example, that if you are a black person living in Des Moines, you are 3 times more likely to be stopped by the Des Moines Police Department than if you are white. If you are a black person living in Des Moines, you are almost 4 times more likely to be put in jail for possession of a controlled substance than if you were white. And finally, if you are a black person living in Des Moines, you are over 12 times more likely to be arrested and put in jail for interference with official acts if you are stopped for a simple equipment or mechanical violation than if you are white. It is long past time, and frankly, we expected that there would be actions by the end of January or early February, which was what was set out when you first considered this in November. It's long past time for the council to acknowledge this problem and make necessary changes in how my black brothers and sisters, your constituents, are policed. And since the police department is not going to implement necessary changes on its own, it's time for you to take this up. You have all the information you need at this point, and further delay cannot possibly be justified.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Herbert Williams, Jr., and I live at 2221 34th Street in Des Moines. And, you know, I'm coming before you because it's like I was before you again in November, right? And we proposed 6 city ordinances that ends racial profiling, bans pretextual stops, collect and publish data, and create a citizen review board, and require training on de-escalation and implicit bias. And, you know, it's like you haven't gotten back with us. And we're kind of, you know, waiting for a reply. And I know that you had the Bridging the Gap program, but it's not, it doesn't hit the target. You know what I'm saying? It's close and similar, but it's not on point. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like me being a black man, I'm constantly followed. I mean, it's like I go on Hy-Vee, right? Get me some oatmeal and bananas. You know what I'm saying? That's my diet now, right? And the police looking at me like I'm going to steal something. I'm not a thief. You know what I'm saying? I drive Uber, right? And late at night, I seen 15 police and we're walking in clusters, right? And then it's like, I don't know what that means. I mean, it looks like militia or something like that, but at the same time, there's other things going on than just what they call profiling people that ain't really doing nothing. But you know, I feel like I get real paranoid when I'm watched like that, and also followed, and I wonder why. Is it because I'm black or what? That's it.
Hi, I'm Nancy Goodman. I'm a member of the CCI Racial Justice Team, Ankeny. 2 points of this proposed ordinance could be enacted right away. We do need an ordinance banning racial profiling. The city manager informs us that we already have a policy in place, that there's disciplinary action if it's ever violated. But when it's violated, what is the procedure? Without naming any employees, what disciplinary actions have been taken? And without any data, how does this even get reported? A ban on racial profiling would be taken more seriously if it had the force of law. We also need to eliminate pretextual stops. Driving while black shouldn't be this horrible, frightening, could end your life kind of experience. I'm white. If I get stopped for any kind of minor traffic violation, I'm not really worried, and I don't really fear for my life. I don't need to grip that steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles just turn white because I'm so afraid I might get dragged out of the car, handcuffed, humiliated. I don't know, it could be worse. Passing these two proposals would go a long way toward treating black people with the respect and the dignity that all citizens deserve. The community has worked too long and too hard on these proposals to still be ignored. At the very least, we're entitled to serious action on each part of this proposal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ron Goodman. I'm a member of the CCI Racial Justice Team, and I'm also a member of Nancy's family. I just wanted to add that 30 states, unlike Iowa, already ban racial profiling, and they're not necessarily the ones you might imagine. Texas and Alabama have laws banning racial profiling. In Des Moines, we have a policy, but we need a law. The city has not responded to also to a couple of our other points that were submitted in November, and one of those was to ban pretextual stops. The police may consider pretextual stops a useful tool for law enforcement, but in reality, it's a tactic that's brought to bear disproportionately against black people. We all know that white drivers in affluent neighborhoods would raise hell if an officer pulled them over for a burnt-out taillight and proceeded to shine a flashlight around the interior of their car and ask leading questions about drugs or guns. There's much to resolve, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the council on these and other points addressed in the proposed ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Laurel Clinton. I live at 1190 10th Street in Des Moines. I am a mother, a concerned citizen, and a proud member of CCI. I was a person that came to the full council in April and invited 3 of the members to meet with the black community to problem solve around issues we know exist in our community, that being racial profiling and the other 6 ordinances that the community came up with and presented to the full council. I'm sorry. I have 3 children, 3 boys. And I told you when I came in April, it wasn't going to be if my children were racially profiled, but when. And you've gotten 2 out of 3 because my 3rd doesn't drive yet. So I want to know where we're going to be with this request to our council when I allow him to drive and he becomes a driver, where we're going to be with this issue. As a citizen, I am tasked to live under ordinances. One, for instance, I'm a dog owner, and I'm trying to shorten this so we can get the other people in. I'm a dog owner, and as a pet owner, I am tasked to live under ordinances that say I have to get her registered, vaccinated, and I have to scoop poop, excuse me. If I don't do these under these ordinances, I can be fined up to $500. I know ordinances are here to protect the environment and its citizens, so I believe in the governance. I was told this morning, or listened to you guys in your meeting, and you said, one of you said, that a racial profiling ban would be redundant because we're already using best practices when it comes to policing in our community. I disagree. Because if we didn't have redundancy, we would only have a mayor and a city manager, but we have a full council. And you're here to govern. And we as a community didn't come here to complain, but to troubleshoot and to work with you because we know that these are issues. We've given you stories. We've given you data. My son was well documented in his stop. The concern I have is that we're not being heard. We want to be considered one of the best cities to live in, but yet we're still bulking when it comes to why would we be against something that would develop trust in our community? Other cities are actually doing racial profiling and doing the ordinances. I bring up the fact about poop scooping to say that you, as council members, are more likely to step in dog poop than you ever will be being racially profiled in the city of Des Moines. So I need you to let that kind of sink in. It's not a problem for you. It's an issue for you. And as the governing body of Des Moines City Council, you have to take on the issues that your constituents bring to you and say is a problem for them.
Very good.
So, as we fill the chamber and we ask you to reassess and reevaluate our request to ban racial profiling as a commitment so that we can be the best city, so that when people come here, they see that we're progressive, that we say that we don't want to treat people differently or less than dog poop at this point. So I'm going to ask you, do you think caring for my pet is more important than caring for my children in this city? So I'm going to ask you, when you go back and think about our request to ban racial profiling, that you use that as an analogy, that I am a good citizen, I take care of my family, I abide by the law, but I would also like to be protected in my city. So have a good day and thank you.
Good evening, panel and citizen out here today. My name is Kelvin Dunnigan, and I'm a citizen of Des Moines. And I've been in Des Moines since I was 16. I am 53 in a couple more months. I'm a resident of Polk County, and I'm here as a concerned citizen today. I have served my country as a veteran. I have worked my entire adult life. Now I'm in a position that I am disabled. I pay my taxes. As a citizen, I am concerned about what goes on in my town. And one of the things I am concerned about is Officer Kyle Thieves. Last summer, there was a video of a stop of two young black men who were racially profiled. That video was viewed more than 10,000 times.
Million.
As a community, we were told there would be a report of a finding of that stop. As of today, there has been silence and no report. I have today in my hands another court case that involves Officer Thieves that I would like for you guys to look at today. The defendant was found not guilty, but the court found that Thieves was not credible in his testimony.
Kelvin, could you hang on 1 second? Mr.
I'll move to receive and file.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem, sir. Officers like this create situations for black men like me and other black young men. As an example, I got in a little trouble 2 years ago. So I got caught with a little marijuana. But that little marijuana cost me my voting rights, cost me my driver license. I cannot get a housing. I can't rent nowhere because I am considered a felon now. And when I mean being a felon, something like this, if you guys don't sure what this is 7 grams of pipe tobacco. If you get caught with 7 grams of any marijuana like I did, you would get caught and get a Class B felon is what this is, ma'am. It's tobacco. And this is tobacco, if you guys would like to look at it. I will even leave it up there.
File that too.
So, what I'm getting at is, just for that little bag of weed, have cost me thousands of dollars. Like I said, I applied downtown for an apartment. You know what they told me? You got a criminal record. So if anyone has a criminal record in Des Moines, Iowa, you will not be allowed to rent downtown as of 2019. The likelihood of any of you guys ever getting racial profiled be like you guys get hitting by lightning. The likelihood of me getting profiled, I can step out that door today. From what I got on today, I get stereotyped so much because what I like to wear and how I like to look. We are all equal here. What we are asking you guys to do is treat everybody equal. We work with you, you work with us. You guys ask us for our help as citizens and taxpayers. We're asking you guys for help as our leaders. We want you to support the racial profiling ordinance. Please don't drag your feet. Let's start separating the bad apples from the good ones. Because we know there are a lot of good apples in Des Moines, Iowa, on our forces. But you guys know too, there are some bad ones. And we need to get rid of them bad ones. God bless you and thank you for your time.
My name is Chris Robinson. I'm a resident here in Des Moines. Live at 1259 Stewart Street. Yeah, I was also at the meeting that you guys had this morning. And like I told some of the people in the group, I should have brought a shovel, but I didn't. With this racial profiling, it's like now what the council is trying to do, especially from this morning, it seems like you're trying to put it on the backs of the Des Moines Human and Civil Rights, to put it on them. And it also seems, if I'm wrong, you guys can say something. But it also seems like it's being put on the Des Moines Human and Civil Rights because Joshua just happens to be black. And by him being black, and since the city council and police chief all thinks, well, it's a black issue since it's mainly black folks complaining, let's give it to that black man. See if he can deal with this for us. So then if it doesn't go right, it's on him. It ain't on us. But we still got the situation. It doesn't handle the situation at all. He can only do so much. You folks as the council, you can handle this today if you wanted to. But since you don't want to, it probably won't be handled today. Yep, and I can see folks getting upset. But you think you're upset. How do you think folks of color feel putting up with the racial profile? The mayor, when you were at Harvey's thing, and when Harvey asked in that meeting, how many people have been racially profiled, would you stand up? And you seen all them damn people of color standing up, something off in your mind ought to be say, oh my God, this is really happening. And if you didn't know, then you knew. Because there was quite a few people of color in that meeting that stood up that had been racially profiled. And then, with the complaint system that the so-called police department has, if you intimidate people coming to complain about your officers, do you really think they're going to come back? Do you really think anything else is going to happen? They've been intimidated. And so to sit there and try to act like you guys are trying to act like this morning, well, we're trying to do something. You're trying to act like you're doing something, but you ain't doing nothing. That's the whole bottom line. You ain't doing nothing. You're just acting as if you want to do something, but ain't nothing happening. And with unbiased policing, if we didn't have the problem in the first place, you wouldn't have to have these rules of unbiased policing. It's just that simple. This is not difficult. And it's not like this has just happened yesterday. This crap has been going on for years. This is going on. It's just different folks around this table. Believe me, this is my first time here. I've been coming down for many years. And so it's just a whole bunch of different people. But we're still dealing with the same problem that we were still dealing with 30 years ago. Still dealing with the same damn problem. And so it's like, what does it really take for the city council, the city manager, the police chief to start protecting people of color? I mean, this has been going on for years. And I can tell, as a city council, city manager, when we came in here earlier today, you guys were talking about the feds, about the courthouse, right? And how you don't like it. The city, they're ignoring you. It's leaving a nasty taste in your mouth, right? You don't like it. Well, how the hell do you think we feel? Right. We've been dealing with this for years.
Okay.
You know, I've learned you got to have it a little bit in an angle. Does that help? Yeah.
My name's Terry Wells. I reside at 1157 14th Street Place here in Des Moines, Iowa. And I think the first thing that needs to be done is I'd like everybody who's here about racial profiling to stand up, that it's not going to be in our city anymore. Wave your hands so the public can see how many of us are here about this issue tonight. Please. Wave your hands for them. So we have a room full of people here that are concerned, and perception is reality. So if we're perceiving this, then you know, we feel it's a reality. Now, I got a few pictures here, and I'll be very brief, but I want to send my thanks out to the 3 of you that I've seen at the Human Rights Symposium. And, you know, 3 out of 7 ain't bad, but it's not 50%. I'm not going to beat anybody up over this, and that's not why I'm saying this. The reason I'm saying it is tonight we have 7 out of 7. We have a quorum. It's time for us to move together. As this says, let's move from passion to progress. Now, I think I know my community fairly well, and one of the things that we're asking for is consistent reliability. We're not bashing anybody, but we're asking for some consistent reliability from our city leaders, from our police, from our community. We have a very social, ethnic diversity in our community, and culture is a way a group of people solve problems and reconcile dilemmas. We're asking not just for an ordinance tonight, we'd like to see the culture here in Des Moines changed. We need to move the pendulum totally, not just a racial profiling ordinance, but we want to solve these problems and get to the bottom and have some reconciliation. Like I said, moving from passion to progress. We have a passion here in Des Moines about full employment, but progress would really be living wages. We have a passion here, and I've heard it many times, affordable housing. But progress is home ownership. Now, one of the reasons I bring this up, maybe you can zoom in a little bit on that, but this is the tale of two cities. And it's very showing that black and brown people in this city do not have the same rate of home ownership as white people. It's also the unemployment issue. 16.7 of African Americans are employed. Now, we have a lot to boast about, and I'm proud of our city. We do a lot of good things here. But if we're going to move from passion to progress, we need to move from being equal to being equitable. Now, some of you may understand that, but equality, we can all be at zero and we're equal. But what is equitable is when we all do better, our city does better. And so we need to be concerned about this. We have a passion about graduation rate, and we need to move to progress. We need students moving to higher education, not just graduating. And as you look up here, I think you'll see one of those numbers that we don't see our black and brown folks getting the higher education. We have a passion in this city about healthy eating. We need to move to progress, no food deserts, and lower the percentage of free and reduced children in this city. 75 to 80% of our children are on free and reduced meals. That should send you up a flare right there. I heard tonight, and I've been to a lot of these meetings, about a passion for transparency and openness. Well, I think we need to move to progress, and progress is community engagement. We've asked about community boards, we've asked about having more input, being more involved, and so to achieve this transparency and openness, community engagement would be progress. Now, I know this is a bad one for us all. We all have a passion for better infrastructure. We've all seen about the potholes. But that passion for better infrastructure could be progress where we deal with more people issues. This is a people issue. We can't fix it by doing a pothole or changing a street light or putting in a stop sign. These are people issues, and it's going to take some work. Finally, about moving from passion to progress, I hear a lot of passion from our council members and from our community leaders that we want a safer city. We want more inspectors. And I think that's a great passion. We all want to feel safe. I think this is what this racial profiling is about. Yes, it's about us feeling safe. Yes, sir. But progress would be more human and civil rights workers, because these are people issues and we need to look at human and civil rights. Yes, sir. Now, before I close, I want to talk quickly about perception and reality. This was a picture that was recently put on Facebook today. I don't know how well the audience can see this. You can actually get it off of my Facebook. It's on there. But this is the 77th graduating class of the Des Moines Police Academy. Now, take a good, long look. I'm not here to beat anybody up, but that don't look like my neighborhood. That don't look like my grocery store. That don't look like my church. Again, I don't want to beat anybody up. I know we're trying to get minorities and people of color to be part of the police force, but when every one of those officers,
There's a few good ones.
except one who is mixed, so I want to give you credit, you got a biracial officer.
There's a few good ones in there.
But this is what we have to enforce our ordinances and our laws. And if it doesn't look like me, then I may have an issue or a problem. Or they may have an issue or a problem because I don't look like them.
Yes, sir.
It's the lens. Now, I tell everybody,
That's it.
I see the whole world purple. Ain't no white, ain't no black, ain't no yellow, ain't no orange. I'm a purple guy. But the lenses we use, that we grow up with, and I'm not making excuses, but the lenses of these men are different than the community they are there to protect and serve. So, before I go over time,
Yep, Terry, could we ask you to?
we say, not in our city. No more racial discrimination. Know your rights. Now, this come right out of our city human rights folks, and I love Joshua, and I love those folks. But if we're putting this out here, then why not pass a law? We talk about bridging the gap.
Terry, we need to wrap it up.
1 minute. I just need 1 minute. We talk about bridging the gap.
You've had 10.
And this actually says shifting perspectives and changing behavior. I'm going to ask you tonight, as a city council, to do paraklatos, which is Greek. You are here to be one who comes to the aid of another. You're servants of righteousness. We know what is right. Now let us do what is right, what is best for our citizens. Your character, your commitment, your intelligence, your volition. Be persons of courage tonight. Step out and represent this room full of people that are here about an issue, about a problem, about a bad mark on our city. This was just put in the Facebook by the city. 81% of our city say great. I think that's wonderful. What about the 19%? We need to focus on the 19%. And I'll guarantee you, if you start looking at statistics, 19% are the people of color in this city. That's why we're only getting 81%. Let's focus on the 19, not the 81.
Okay, I think that looks like the last speaker. We have another one coming here?
The NAACP.
Okay.
I'm Russell Lovell. I reside at 4055 42nd Street in Des Moines. I'm a member of the CCI, but I'm also the co-chair of the Legal Redress Committee for the NAACP here in Des Moines. We strongly support the urgent need for an ordinance. Laws don't always change hearts and minds, but they do change conduct. Harvey mentioned the data with regard to Iowa being the worst in terms of racial profiling in 2014. I'm from Nebraska originally, grew up in Nebraska. That same report 10 years earlier had Nebraska the worst state in the nation with regard to racial profiling. That black and white report from that relied upon FBI statistics. Nebraska passed an anti-racial profiling statute in 2001 that defined and barred racial profiling and provided for data collection. Laws make a difference. By 10 years later, when they evaluated them on the standard, Nebraska had dropped from worst in the nation down to, they'd cut their racial disparities in half, and they were now down in the middle of the pack, just by having a definition and data collection. Data collection, I know I participated in community meetings 2 or 3 years ago that Rudy Sims chaired and Jerry Torme with regard to body cameras. The first time we met, every police department in the whole Polk County except one was against body cameras. The longer we met about it and they heard that, hey, body cameras can exonerate as well as prove a violation of misconduct, the same is going to be true with regard to data collection. All it takes is one officer that's engaging in racial profiling once a day, a rogue officer probably. That's 250 racial profiling incidents over the course of a year. We need to identify those. Data collection can go a long ways to identify whether there's a problem, whether it's a matter of just re-education or, in fact, further discipline or even discharge. Data collection makes a real difference. It's a really important part of this. You need to have a law that both prohibits, defines what racial profiling is not, provides for independent enforcement with, say, the Des Moines Human Rights Commission, and then you'll have the complaints come forward. If they're not just a policy that goes into the opaque nature of the Des Moines Police Department. Your manager's report said that the issue of banning all pretextual stops is no longer being pursued at this time. You can't deal with this issue if you don't deal with pretextual stops. Now, there is some distinctions here. And in the legislation that we drafted at the state level, and we met with Chief Wingert and the Des Moines Department on 2 different occasions for an hour each and went over that legislation. And if you go back and look at the original U.S. Supreme Court decision written by Justice Scalia in 1997 that approves pretextual stops, the last paragraph of that decision says that that doesn't mean we approve racially discriminatory pretextual stops. Those are unconstitutional. Police have largely ignored that. A racially discriminatory pretextual stop is unconstitutional. And we went through it. If we had time, I'd go through the same hypothetical that the chief gave me in terms of the red pickup truck on the south side. But there is a difference between a racially discriminatory pretextual stop. You've got to address that. We have pending litigation in the Iowa Supreme Court as we speak that was argued back in September, in which there is an argument. We wrote, along with the ACLU, an amicus brief that argues that pretextual stops overall are unconstitutional under the Iowa Constitution, because they are an abuse of power with regard to white folks as well. But at least at this point, the compromise has to include a bar on racially discriminatory pretextual stops. And it's important to understand that even if the U.S. Supreme Court held that pretextual stops are unconstitutional, we in Iowa can do better than that. Under our Iowa Constitution, and we can do it better in terms of laws. That's the minimum floor. That's the bare minimum. We can do better than that, and we must do better than that. So finally, I'm pleased to see on your agenda for May 6th the incentives with regard to officers living in the community. And I know every time I have this conversation with police, I mean, we believe in community policing. Oftentimes they'll follow with the sense, we don't want to look like an occupying force. Well, what do you think you look like when 80% of police officers in Des Moines don't live in the city of Des Moines? The police, like any other, they need to be stakeholders. You know, they've got to have a vested interest in this community, that they want to make it better. Their kids go to the same schools and the churches and so on. You will reduce, I mean, I believe in implicit bias training. That's important. But believe me, I believe a lot more in terms of people living in the community, getting to know their neighbors, getting to understand the cultures. You know, and I know that the chief's been working on having officers come in and have a cup of coffee. Well, that's fine, but that's not the same. And so that's something you need to deal with really seriously. And at some point, I hope you and other municipalities will get behind and get the statute in Iowa rescinded that takes away the discretion to say, hey, if you want to work in Des Moines for the police department, you need to live in the city of Des Moines. If you want to live in West Des Moines, you can get a job with the West Des Moines Police Department. But we're entitled to have officers who have a stake in this community before they get to keep a job here. Thank you very much.
I'm Betty Andrews, president of the Iowa NAACP. I'm a Polk County resident living at 86 what is my address? 8723 Oakdale in Johnston. I am a business owner at 1620 Pleasant Street. And I know that time is short, so I won't be before you long, but I hope that what I have to say is heartfelt and strong. My remark is policy is not enough. A simple Google check led me to several distinctions between policy and laws or ordinances. And I just want to, for the sake of time, read one. And it says, a policy outlines what government hopes to achieve, and the methods, principles, and practices that it hopes to use to achieve them. It states the goals of government. A policy document is not a law, but will often identify new possibilities of law. On the other hand, an ordinance or a law sets out standards, sets out procedures and principles that must be followed. If a law is not followed, those responsible for breaking them can be prosecuted in court. And I say to you, policy is not enough. We want something that holds our government accountable at the highest level possible. The NAACP back in 2013 through our Iowa Summit on Justice and Disparities brought in our National Criminal Justice Chair introducing information from a booklet called The Born Suspect, which had a template for laws in which they were working. In that booklet at that time, it said over 31 states nationally have racial profiling legislation, and we also know that several cities have it also. Right here in Iowa, the NAACP has begun the process of working with cities and municipalities across the state. We have had success with University Heights, which is right outside of Iowa City, and we continue to work on this. And what I'm saying to you is, I know that the proposals that you've seen, that you saw in November, were strongly based on the some of that legislation. So there is national, there is local, there is a ton of expertise that has gone into this legislation or the request for these ordinances. And so we are here to say, again, policy is not enough. We need an ordinance, and we need it right away. No mother should have to give the talk again to her child to say, be careful, be warned. And policeophobia should not be a thing in this state, in this city. I see that we are, today you're dealing with noise ordinances, traffic ordinances. Someone mentioned ordinances around pets and things like that. Policy is not enough, because if you're dealing with ordinances on those levels, what does a life mean to you? Because not only are we being, and I shouldn't say we, because African Americans are being stopped, they're also being searched at a disproportionate rate. Amen. So I say to you, policy is not enough. Policy is not enough.
My name is Matthew Passo at 1245 70th Street. I get stage fright easily, so bear with me. I am a student at DMAC. I'm also a full-time employee at Wells Fargo. At Wells Fargo, if I am found to discriminate against somebody based on their race, their sex, or their age, I will be subject to disciplinary action, up to and including termination. I work in a call center, answering phones. I would like the same level of strictness that I am subject to at my job be applied to the police in any means necessary.
All right, it looks like that's our last speaker for this evening. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for staying engaged. I think, again, as was pointed out, it's progress is made when we work together to try to find these solutions. We, as was pointed out, have been working with citizens, obviously through our Bridging the Gap process, which engaged now nearly 800 of our citizens who gave us lots of input in regarding issues, and we are trying to be solution-based on that work. Based upon what was said here tonight, I think we ought to refer that to our city manager and city attorney to come back with a recommendation on the request here from the citizens regarding an ordinance, and compare that with what we have, and we'll see what we can do to move forward on that. I'll ask any of our council members if they have any comments they'd like to make.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead.
I just want to thank everybody for speaking, and I appreciate the mayor bringing up I think we need to review about looking into having an ordinance and
Thank you.
look at the different things. Again, I'll just turn, if you have anything to say, Councilman Mandelbaum, turn it over.
Well, sure. I want to thank the folks who spent time with us tonight and have spoken. I want to thank everyone who spent time really over the last year. I've spent a lot of time having conversations with people in the community. And I don't walk in your shoes. You know, that's not quite possible. But I appreciate you trying to help me understand what it is like to walk in your shoes. And I get you're passionate about this. And I think it's important that you push us, because we do need to hear from everyone in our community. And we need to understand what people's experiences are like in our community. And we do know that there are very different worlds in close proximity in Des Moines.
Your neighbor.
I want to talk about a couple of other things. One of the things, I do want to thank the city manager and the police chief. I know they have invested significant amounts of time working on these issues. I also want to call out Joshua Barr and the Civil and Human Rights Commission. And I do want to point out, and I know, I've been on this council a little over a year, and it sometimes seems like things are going slow from my perspective. And being on the council, we're maybe a little more used to things going slow. So I also get that folks want a more immediate action. But I do want to point out some of the progress that we've started to make. And that was reflected in the discussion this morning. I mean, we are making progress on implicit bias training. I'm hopeful we're going to be making some progress on de-escalation training. And just because we're at one place today, we can still ask questions, and I appreciate the fact that the chief has been very open to that. He's been willing to listen to my questions and come back with responses, and he's going to help me understand better, and we're still working on it, what we can do from a de-escalation best practices and what we still need to do. But we're making some progress there. We're making progress with the information cards that the department's going to be passing out. We're making progress there. The fact that we're looking at housing incentives to encourage officers and other employees, that is progress. And part of all of these things happening, it's the conversations that Bridging the Gap helped have. It's the conversations that the folks at CCI helped organize. Just because we're making some progress does not mean we're done. It does not mean we don't have more work to do. We didn't cover everything on the list in the work session this morning, and I hope that we will have another work session to get to the remaining items sometime soon. I want to let folks know, because I think it's important, where I'm at least some of these things. I do support putting our current policy, our unbiased policing policy, into ordinance.
Hell yeah.
I do support working with the chief, and we're working on data collection. I would like us to do more, and I'm appreciative of the fact that we are working with the DOT to improve things in the license system. I want us to improve our system of collection, particularly, I think we have an opportunity right now as we're looking at our information technology. So I'd like us to continue that conversation and to make progress on what kind of data we collect. And one of the things that I look forward to talking about, because we didn't get to this, I think we need to do more on marijuana possession. And I know it's not just a city issue. We should be looking at decriminalizing marijuana possession.
Yes, sir.
At the state and federal level.
Yes.
But I do think we have a role, until that happens, that we have a role that we can play at the city level.
Right.
And,
Yes, sir.
And the chief, we're going to have that conversation. I want to continue having that conversation. And just want to be clear about where I'm at. I'm committed to continuing conversation with members of the community, and to working constructively with my colleagues to try and make as much progress as we can.
That's what we like to hear, sir. Appreciate it.
Unless there's anything else, we ought to have a motion to receive, file,
I'll
and...
make a motion, or I'll move. Would you want to, oh, you have something to say?
I have a quick thing to say.
Sure.
And I mentioned this morning after the workshop, that the mayor and I and Bill had a chance to sit down with NAACP representatives and Drake and others. This is important, and it's important that we get it right. My one hope is that when we think about any kind of ordinance or rules, that it's not limited to the Des Moines Police Department. And I think many of you have heard me say this before. What we do when we talk about racial profiling and unbiased services to our community by our city employees should blanket our rental inspectors and our zoning enforcement officers, the people that provide services in our parks and our public works. To me, the police are an important part of the city, but it isn't right that we limit our efforts to demonstrate, our inclusiveness and commitment to people of our community to just the police department. That's number one. And so as we refer it, I guess your motion will be, Connie, I hope that we consider that, and that we broaden what we do beyond the police department, because I want to ensure that all the public services that the city provides operate with the same commitment to being unbiased and equally applied. I personally hope that the recommendation doesn't come back in a way where it's a single vote. I know there's a lot of people that have strong feelings about marijuana. I'm probably an outlier. I'm probably not going to vote to decriminalize it.
I appreciate the efforts that I understand are underway at the state to change it from a serious misdemeanor to a simple misdemeanor. I think our police chief saw our reaction to that idea today, and he's never registered opposed to that as a police chief, and I hope that continues to be the position of the city. It does need to make more sense, but I don't want a blanket ordinance to come back because I don't want to vote against what comes forward because of one plank of it.
But, yeah.
I think that's separate, yeah.
Yeah, I think your points are well taken, council member, and I think it makes sense to maybe going forward, deal with some of these things
Separate issues.
separately and make progress where we can, where there's consensus, and keep talking as we go forward.
So I'll move that we look at providing, or coming back with an ordinance that against racial profiling by all services and all city employees.
Yes.
So that covers what Councilman Coleman wanted, and it really truly is true. It should be all of us.
Yes.
Right, and of course, you might point out to everybody that we have specifically pointed out that the training on the racial bias training should be to all departments. And including boards, commissions, and city council members.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're asking for that to happen as well.
So,
And receive and file all the
and
comments.
receive and file all the comments that were given this evening.
And Betty, to you, you're going to get me the University Heights
I am.
ordinance,
I'm
and
gonna
you're
get
going to
you-
give me the
yes,
Senate
yes, sir.
file. I think you and Russell, as we talked earlier,
Absolutely.
are going to give me that.
Absolutely. Can I just say, though, and with all due respect to Councilman Coleman, I just really want us to be clear that we're looking for racial profiling, an anti-racial profiling ordinance, and I understand that there may be some things that could work with that, and in terms of city employees and things like that. But what I don't want to happen is for us to get bogged down in kind of figuring out how those works, and then we lose that linear piece where we get this piece. I think that absolutely we need the other, but we can work on that after we get this through. And I'm not saying that's absolute, but that discussion should happen before it just turns into something else.
Okay. We have a motion, I think, on the table, and I'll ask everybody to vote, please.
Remember how you guys felt with the feds.
All right.
Remember that,
All right, we want to thank you all for attending. Yep.
Thank you again for this morning.
Yeah, good to see you.
That was really instructive.
I'll try and be straight with people.
Hey, we're going to make headway.
Thanks for your work.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on your neighbor.
If you got any questions on any of that stuff that you see in that packet, give me a ring.
Yeah,
And
I
that-
actually
Let's take about a minute for the council chamber to clear.
tried to look up the University Heights ordinance. I found media coverage of it.
Yeah, we can get it to you. We've got copies.
If you have it, get it to me.
Yeah, take care.
Well, I guess, question I've
Card.
You did a great job on that. I love that.
Sure.
We just can't.
It's not hard for anything other than Southeast, Mr. Holt sitting back there. I don't see anything on the agenda for him.
Didn't we already approve it?
Yeah, I mean,
You take care of the last extra item?
yeah.
You might not realize that. It's up to you.
You want to just vote on the rest of these, the first ordinance, or?
Well, let's go ahead and do the
Gotcha.
last item here on the specials. Item 3 is request from Councilmember Mandelbaum to speak regarding sidewalks on Fluor Drive. Josh?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. And I think there are a number of people in the audience here to speak on this issue as well. Should we wait a second?
Thank you.
So this item has been an ongoing issue in the Third Ward, and it's relative to the Fluor Drive reconstruction that will be starting this spring. And it has been a priority, not just for me, but of a number of the neighbors who live north, south, east, and west of Fluor Drive to make this a complete street and a more accessible street. We were initially scheduled to have a vote on that today. It was noticed appropriately, and those items were made public. I was notified a little after 3 o'clock that it was being pulled off the agenda, and I wanted folks to have an opportunity to talk about it and to try and move this forward, because I think there has been, well, one, I think people deserve to understand what the concerns are, and this is a critical stretch of sidewalk, and about a year ago, there was some concern and maybe some misinformation about what the cost would be, particularly for the stretch from Park Avenue to the entrance of Wakanda. And I'm very appreciative of the folks at Wakanda working through those issues and helping to understand that. We knew that was going to be a more expensive stretch of sidewalk because as part of the sidewalk, the city provides and replaces any landscaping, fencing, things that exist there. In this stretch, we knew there was fencing and landscaping, and that was going to make the cost a little bit more. But we also knew that there's a worn path there, and people walking that day in and day out. I'm appreciative of the folks at Wakanda working through those issues. They initially thought the price tag was going to be over $1 million. We've got that down significantly to the point that the folks at Wakanda were willing to work with us on this and to move forward. And we've got an agreement with them that we can ratify if we move forward with this stretch of sidewalk. This stretch of sidewalk provides vital connectivity and safety to anyone who wants to go from the South Watrous neighborhood all the way to Grays Lake. It provides that connectivity. It provides connectivity for people who live in the Grays Lake neighborhood who want to go to the grocery store, to the movie theater, and a number of other shopping locations along Fluor. It's, in my mind, one of the most important things that we could be investing in, the safety of our residents and creating a more accessible city. And I know there's some concern about expense, and that it's more expensive than other parts of sidewalk. But connectivity should not be contingent on the fact that there's a fence in the way, and it makes it a little more expensive. Your access to this community would all of a sudden become whim to what your neighbor chooses to install if we're going to make a policy that we're not going to install sidewalks because we have to pay a little bit more for a fence or some landscaping. There are lots of items, and I'll find one in my ward that was even on the agenda tonight that we could delay to make up the cost difference. And that's, we're willing to spend $230,000 to replace the rails on the Riverwalk, the historic rails. Those have been in that condition, the balustrades, thank you, for years. That would make up the difference in cost between this and a normal sidewalk. It's way more important, and no one threw up any concern about that $200,000. We voted to set that hearing without a blink of an eye. It's way more important for the safety of our residents and for the accessibility of our community to invest in that stretch of sidewalk. And so I would like to, and I'm going to ask the city attorney if we can do that since it's been noticed. I would like us to vote on 13 and 13A, even though they were pulled. I'd like us to vote on that. And that's my motion.
The first motion, I think, would be to reconsider item number 2, approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Assuming that the motion to reconsider would pass, then it would be appropriate to add back 13 and 13A. And once those are added back, then it would be a motion to approve. So we really have 3 different votes, but the motion, I believe, was unanimous. So that would be the best procedural way to do it.
Okay, that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to give the public an opportunity first.
So is the first one's to move it, item 3, is it, to put it back on the?
It would be.
Well, and I think Councilmember Mandelbaum, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this? If you'd step up and quickly give us some of your thoughts, appreciate it very much.
I'm Ruth Thompson, and I live at 4400 Park Avenue. I'm the vice chair of the Access Advisory Board, but I'm not here to speak in that capacity because we made our feelings pretty clear when we rejected the plans for this project unanimously because of the lack of sidewalk that we're discussing. Let me just say that on the way here, I bottomed out in a huge pothole. I am totally, when I heard that there was going to be a restoration project on Fleur, I jumped up and down because as long as we've lived here about 6 years, I thought what a shame it is that the flowers are nice, the surroundings are nice, that the road's a mess. And so I was really happy to know that there was going to be a project, but whenever I saw that the sidewalk was not going to be contiguous, I couldn't in good conscience vote to approve the plans. I'm also the chair of the Central Iowa Center for Independent Living, and we are the largest center for independent living in the state. We serve people with disabilities in a number of counties adjoining us. And I'm speaking from that capacity and from someone who travels on Fleur every single day. That's my neighborhood, and I love it over there. It was interesting to me to hear a lot of conversation about how we need to make this part of Des Moines nice and make sure that that sidewalk is working and everybody has access to what they need, and that's why I love Des Moines. But, you know, it's befuddling to me to think that one section, that accessibility doesn't matter there. I was an ADA consultant for a number of years, and I know that given the type of thoroughfare that is, you don't have to put a sidewalk there. But just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Sidewalks are important to people with disabilities, and throughout our history as advocates and the independent living movement and disability rights movement, we've done a lot of radical things to make sure that we have access to sidewalks over the years, and I hope that we never have to go back to that. But aside from that, sidewalks create community. As Councilman Mandelbaum mentioned, this sidewalk links apartments and housing where folks may or may not have access to a car to grocery stores, dining, a drugstore, movies, churches, daycare centers, public transportation, and so much more. And this isn't just about people with disabilities. It's about young families with strollers and children who are learning to ride their bikes. It's important in making Des Moines a cluster of visitable communities and walkable communities. I hear that all the time about how important it is. And those are things that make Des Moines attractive to young families and to folks who want to come here and live. I don't see this as a sidewalk issue. I see it as a social justice issue. And I do urge you to include sidewalks in every segment of the floor reconstruction project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Evan Shaw, 2615 Druid Hill Drive, and I'm also a member of the Grays Lake Neighborhood Association Board. I'm a little miffed that I have to be here again to talk about this project and the importance of it with the council. I'd just like to reiterate that, you know, the neighborhood is vastly supportive of the project, and our expectation is that we will get a sidewalk along Fleur Drive. We do believe that this is a highly critical, you know, important piece to the success of our neighborhood. It's going to link a lot of very vital and important elements and help connect the neighborhood, make it a much more vital and better place to live. But really what I'm mostly concerned about is the safety aspect. Fleur Drive is a very, very fast street, as I'm sure you're all aware. It's one of the major arterial roads we have in Des Moines and the only connection we have to the airport. And the fact that it does not have a safe walkable access on either side of it right now is frankly mystifying. And to hear some members of the council, you know, worry about the cost of this, you know, I have to deal with these sort of conversations every day in my role as an architect. I can't, you know, count the number of times I've gone to a project and have a client, you know, lament about the cost of, you know, why do I have to have a sprinkler system, or why does this alarm system cost so much, or why can't I make the building out of wood because it's a lot cheaper. And the fact of the matter is that we have to do some things just for life safety that are more expensive than, you know, to do it the traditional way. And sometimes we just have to do it that way. And it's unfortunate that we have to, you know, make up for, you know, some misses that past councils or past people did, or rules that weren't in effect at the, you know, 10, 20 years ago. But times are different now, and unfortunately that's just the cost of doing business. And I just want to remind council that it's our expectation of the neighborhood that we do have a walkable path along Fleur Drive. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, question for Evan. You've been around a long time, and we've talked a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You were part of the Quiet Street on Southwest 14th?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to me why you guys never put sidewalks in anywhere on Southwest 14th when you did the Quiet Street?
Well, that was part of what the initial proposal was, and we were strong advocates of that. But the funding that we received, because it was all paid for through grant funding and through the state, and that money was not enough to do sidewalks at the time. And in that particular case, it would also take a lot of, you know, what's the correct word? You'd have to have a lot of the citizens like personally sign off on that, and we were able to get them to agree to do a lot of the streetscape improvements, but we couldn't get enough agreement on the sidewalk at that particular time.
Okay.
But believe me, we would really want that to happen.
I think that would be that would have been a wonderful choice to put a sidewalk on that street that's 5 to 6 feet wide. Because let me tell you, traveling with the stroller or anything else on Southwest 14th compared to Fleur Drive is a big difference. For safety. And you said it, safety.
Yes. I mean, really what we wanted to do, our first shot with the Quiet Street, was to actually have that bike trail extend the entire length all the way to the zoo. But that was extensively cost prohibitive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Evan, for everything that you do for the neighborhoods.
Anthony Carroll, Associate State Director for Advocacy for ARP Iowa. I live at 525 60th Street, and I'm here on behalf of ARP Iowa I know in item 50, Mayor, you referenced a lot of groups have put effort and work into helping make the local option sales tax reality. We were proud to be part of that effort, as we talked about at the time and subsequently about how can we make Des Moines more livable, more walkable, more safe. And this is a project that has been discussed for, by my recollection, I'm further distance from other people in our office to this for about a year. And I came here under the auspices that I thought be watching item 13 pass, a thoughtful acceptance of real estate documents regarding this project. So it's a bit of surprise and disappointing to hear that that's not an item being discussed today. So I'm here to, I guess, express some disappointment and seek some clarity on what is going on with this project. You know, anytime you have these projects to make our streets more livable and safe, there's going to be a cost associated. And this is a project that's been in the work and discussions for a lengthy period of time. My question is, the things that are newer, is it going to be any easier to do things that are new and not even on the table? So we think whether this is as more important than other projects, it's not certainly less important. Whether you're someone who drives down that street, so I just did drive someone off the airport, you see people walking on the grass, families. So I really seeking clarity and asking questions on kind of where is this, what's the next step to keep this project moving forward, and that's why I'm here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Stacy Freeland. I've spoke to many of you guys in the past. We were very big supporters of Move DSM, that plan, and then also we joined with AARP and actually quite a few of our coalition partners with the Well Kids of Central Iowa. And joining with supporting the local option sales tax. We did a lot of get out the vote around that with a lot of our volunteers and encouraged a lot of our volunteers and staff that we knew that were in the Des Moines area and our patients that we work with that are heart and stroke patients to get out and vote for the local option sales tax because we were told that that was definitely a way that we could pay for implementing a lot of Move DSM. And so we've been checking and making sure that some of those projects that are important to getting complete streets are going through the process and had a lot of our coalition partners that were committed to come tonight. They were going to watch the vote. Unfortunately, it got taken off last minute, and so some of those members weren't able to stay and speak. But if they were here, they would say, they all were supportive of the local option sales tax so we can get some of these projects moving and implemented. So I'm disappointed that we couldn't vote on that tonight. I'm hopeful the next step of this would be to vote on that. We would really appreciate it. And we come at it from the perspective getting more people access. People like Maddie, who I kind of helped get involved in this process. And Maddie has been a huge supporter. She's now a part of the Disabilities Council. I don't know if it's completely official yet with the City of Des Moines, but Maddie has been a huge part of this. And I think, when I think of her, when I think of other stroke and heart patients and access, I know that stretch of road, you have a bus stop there, if not two, for sure. And having people like Maddie need to have access to that is really, really critically important. I think sometimes gets forgotten in this discussion. So I want to have Maddie talk because I think she's important to this. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. I'm very shocked, that it got pushed. My point of view, and it's always going to be this way, is transportation, sidewalk safety. When I was driving down here, come to the city, I was shocked that there weren't two sidewalks on both sides of the street. I took MLK one day to go to wherever I was going, and there were no sidewalks, and I was shocked. I had to walk fast to get to the other side of the street. From my point of view, one day when I'm by myself, something dangerous is going to happen, and I wouldn't know what to do because of the sidewalks. I live at 6220 Southeast 2nd in Des Moines, and we don't have a sidewalk on my street. And I hear at night when I go to bed, people driving and stopping really fast, and there's a dip on our street. And I hope one of the days that if it's dark out and I have to go to work, that I don't get hit because we don't have a sidewalk on the street. So I beg of you to figure out how to get sidewalks on either side of the street or both for lives that with disabilities or even with people in general, with kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie.
Mayor?
Anybody else? Mr. Coleman?
Thanks, everybody, for coming down. And this has been a very debated issue among us as council, not just Fleur, but sidewalks overall. And at our last, whatever, all-day-long workshop, strategic planning session, we talked about the goals of the city. It shouldn't make any surprise to anybody because last May 7th, we took this issue up and we talked about it. We authorized the manager, and I voted for it, that he would have our authorization to go spend $25,000 to go buy it. He mentioned at the time if it was much more than that, he wouldn't recommend it. And now we're really talking about 20 times that. I have this year's budget up for school and priority routes for sidewalks. Our entire budget for the whole year to do projects like what you're talking about, Maddie, is $556,000. This project will cost the city almost exactly that much, a little bit more. Now, tonight, we only have the purchase of the property. Then we have the whole construction process. And so, as I said last May 7th.
Construction's in there.
They're both in there.
It's over 500.
It's over 500. Are we
With the
voting on
construction.
both tonight?
Yeah.
Both are there
Okay.
tonight.
So the 250 some for the
258 and 260.
the payment
plus
to the
COLA.
Wakanda group is just taking money away from other priorities. And as a council, we said that our priority is going to be, let's get a sidewalk on one side of the road, as many places as we can, before we return and put a sidewalk on the other side of the road. And in this case, I would do whatever it took to put a sidewalk on one side of Fleur. We're already doing that. And we're doing it on the side where there's a lot of traffic, more residential, right abutting the Fleur Drive Road. And so I'm going to stay true to what I said last May, that there's a limit to what I'm willing to pay the Wakanda Club to buy property from them, and which, by the way, is 5 times the cost of all the land on the west side of the road. And that's twice as much area with many more property owners, more complicated.
As a point of order, I mean, one of the things that the Wakanda transaction did is Wakanda included, rather than have the city reconstruct the fence and the city reconstruct the landscaping, the price included those items, which we knew were going to be significant. So you're adding something that's not
Take that 80,000 away, it's still 4 times the cost of the west side of Fleur.
Right.
And I do believe, and if I didn't believe this, I would never have the position I did. I know there's people walking on the east side of Fleur. I think that's primarily because that's flatter as it stands right now than the west side of Fleur. When there's a sidewalk and traffic signals, I think people will choose to walk on the west side of Fleur. And that will alleviate the real safety concern that I have. Right now, there's no alternative to the side, to the walking path on the east side of the road. We're spending a lot of money to create an option there on Fleur. So I try and be straight with people. I tried to be straight last May 7th, and my mind really hasn't changed much, but I appreciate it. Like we said in our strategic plan, I'd be willing to come back and address this when we get to the other high-priority school safety routes, which is the policy I think we set that day.
Okay, Joe and then Con.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, thank you. And thank you all for coming. I truly appreciate it. And I've probably been one of the biggest advocates of sidewalks since I've been elected, and walkability. Maddie, when you lived on Thornton, on Rose, you got a sidewalk. The other day, I seen you driving down Army Post Road going to the Y when I was driving. You were on the sidewalk, but I knew you didn't have a sidewalk, and I told my wife, we need to get Maddie a sidewalk. And you helped us get some funding by advocating for local option sales tax. But by saying that doesn't mean we have an unlimited checkbook now. And we get to just do whatever project, and it doesn't matter if it costs, for 1,900 linear feet, we're going to pay over $500,000. I told my brother, he's an engineer, he goes, what are you making it 20 inches deep? I mean, that's how much money we're going to spend on that. But it's not just about the money. It's about being safe. We can do that on the other side of the street. Many of the people that are using that sidewalk are coming from those apartments that are near the old AIB. They're walking up to Price Chopper. They're walking up to Jimmy John's. They're walking up to QT. Our original plan was always to have it from Watrous to the bus stop on the east side of the street, where we have plenty of right-of-way and we can set it back. So the sidewalk's not going to be on top of the street like it's going to be between the fence and the curb, where after the entrance down to Park Avenue. That is not safe. Then you've got a big retaining wall that's there that's going to need to be rebuilt, and it's just, that area is not safe, and that's probably why it hasn't ever had a sidewalk for 150 years. But you know what? We're going to put a sidewalk on at least one side of the road. And that's our goal. We talked about it. We, once in 20 years, when we come back and we say, okay, now we've used up all of our $60 million over the next 20 years to do sidewalks, we're going to spend $60 million. That's almost unheard of. When people read that in the paper that Austin put in there, they're like, you're really going to spend $60 million on sidewalks? And I said, yeah, we're going to do it over 20 years. That's a good thing. That's what we need to connect our residents, our neighbors. There's so many neighborhoods on the south side that have been built without sidewalks. And you know what? I want to be able to use that money on other projects, whether it be in Ward 3 on the south side or whether it be in Ward 4 on the south side, whether it be maybe to go take and immediately build Maddie a sidewalk on her street so she's safe. So I appreciate everybody coming down, and I've always said that from the very beginning. I came to your neighborhood meeting, and we've talked about that. I'd be happy to vote on it tonight. We can reopen it up, and if it passes, it passes. That's fine, but I'm not going to use taxpayer dollars like that. I'm not going to use my dollars that I pay for tax dollars like that. But I am going to use it to at least build it on one side of the street, because that's what I feel like we need to do for right now.
So, I have just a question or point of order, because, there was a sidewalk added on 30th Street from Boston to Urbandale in 2017. We're looking at 1,900 feet of sidewalk here. And I wasn't on the council in 2017, but a lot of the folks who are here were on the council in 2017, and we spent $200,000, just shy of $200,000, for 770 feet. That's about the same cost per foot as what we are looking at here.
It's not just about the cost, Josh, and I've said that, and I've said this to you privately, and I'll say it publicly. That sidewalk is going to be too close to the street and the retaining wall, and you've got golfers that are hitting golf balls off a tee box right next to it. It is not safe to have it there. We can open it up, we can vote on it, and if it passes, it passes. You're not going to change my mind. You haven't been able to change my mind.
Have a debate. Connie?
I guess it just is so contrary to what, I was also surprised that it was not on our agenda to vote on, because our whole thing of the sales tax was connectivity. We're tearing up a road where you can do it the cheapest you can probably do it now than you'll ever do it again. So you're going to come back in 20 years. It's a very highly used road by travelers, walking obviously, and I understand they can go down the other side. There's a lot of people that want to stay on that one side. That if our mission was to put sidewalks and get the cities walking friendly, then why are we not wanting to do this? I understand the cost we knew was going to be more money, but because of a golf or whatever, we would, if engineer believes that it's not far enough in, I don't think they would suggest even putting a sidewalk down.
But we're not doing it on both sides of the street on Southeast Fifth in my ward.
Well, that-
We're only doing it on one side of the
Yeah,
street.
but I'm just saying, the mission of what we thought we were doing with the sales tax was to make more connectivity. We're tearing up the road, and where we're going to do major road construction, we're going to put sidewalks in. For that purposes alone, and the fact that it's the number one street almost in Des Moines, I think we should have sidewalks on both sides.
Bill, Linda, anything?
Well,
Just,
my comment is that I would like to see us at least have more discussion on it. Because I asked some questions, and I think that, yes, I love sidewalks. There should be sidewalks on at least one side of the street. But I still maintain it should be on the other side of the street. How long before we get to that side of the street that sidewalks could be built? I would like to know that. And what's the cost to build it on the west side of the street as opposed to the east side of the street? And I know that we had some discussion with, I've seen some letters from the Park Fluor condominiums who said, you know, we just really have a problem with getting sidewalks along there. Are we not going to build sidewalks there, but we would have it on the other side of the street?
No, it's still
So-
there.
That sidewalk's going to be there.
And at what cost? What's that going to cost? I mean, it just seems that it would be better to put it on the other side of the street.
Right next to it.
well, and I think part of what was suggested
And-
here, and it's because it's an add-on to the construction project that's going on, and to Connie's point, I think this, if we were going to do it on this side of the street, now's the time to do it. Because we're going to tear that lane up, we're going to have everything all ready to go, and if we're putting a sidewalk in, probably now's the time to do it. And on that side, there is, as was pointed out, sort of a cow path that goes up that side of the street. There is a bus stop over there, and people come from a variety of different places, not only to go there, but ultimately they have to cross the street, if even they're on the west side, to get to the grocery stores, because some of them don't drive going up there, they walk.
Is this
And-
one of the designated school routes?
I would think so. It would be a route to Brody. I don't know if it's
And Jefferson.
in Jefferson.
I don't know. I'm probably not going to support it tonight just because I want more information. And in the meantime, I hope that we can take care of some other things. I know in my ward, you know, we've got a huge issue in one of the neighborhoods, and we're still waiting to get some resolution to that. And I'm just hesitant to say, okay, I approved $500,000 for 1,900 square feet, where that would do a
Lineal feet.
lot.
It's lineal fee.
Lineal feet.
Yeah, 1,900 lineal feet.
That's
But-
a little, it's between a third and a half of a mile.
It's $275 a linear foot.
That's just
That's a lot of money.
I just have to
It-
answer to, you know, to people, but yes, we want sidewalks, but let's get more information. Let's find out exactly what it's going to cost us. And how soon are we looking at sidewalks on the other side of the street?
Well, they weren't going to build this one until 2020.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, just a clarification, Josh. 30th Street's a completely different project. Those are 10-foot wide lanes, one of the smallest streets in Des Moines, no sidewalks on either side. We got the Easter Seal Society on the south end, we got the VA hospital on the north end. There's people in wheelchairs going up and down that street because there was nothing. And then to add to it, we've got kids that are living at 30th and Douglas that have to go to Monroe School walking in the street. So way different comparison there. And I pushed that through because it made the most sense for our citizens for safety. I wanted to have it on both sides. Engineering come back and said, nope, can't do it. And it probably never will be a street on the other side. Am I correct? And yeah. I mean, yeah, because the way the ground's laid. So that's one.
Bill, can I add to that? Because I think the 30th Street is fair play. We put it on one side of the street, not both sides of the
Right.
street, which is what we're talking about, Fleur. And we didn't put it on the other side of the street when the city owned a big chunk of that land, and there would have
Exactly.
been no land acquisition. It was ours, and we still decided not to do it so that we could use our funds judiciously on the side of the street that needed it. And just so, I didn't bring that up, but it's important to point out that we are trying to do a similar thing on both stretches.
And, and I can speak from my own experiences. I like to sit out and have a cup of coffee and read the paper on my porch. I have a sidewalk in front of my house. Across the street, there is no sidewalk. There's a sidewalk to the west, sidewalk to the east, but there's that one block between 47th and 46th that doesn't have a sidewalk. People do behavioral modifications. They walk up to 47th, they walk across the street, walk down my sidewalk, and keep using it. And that's what you got one side of the street. I don't anticipate any time that there's going to be another sidewalk across the street, but, if we've got money in there for a sidewalk and it works, we might never have a need to put the one on the east side over by Wakanda. I've seen that happen. So it's, I'm with Linda. I'd like to have more information. That's my
just want
first
more
and foremost.
information.
Information is always good, but,
I don't know how much more information. I'm going to make a motion to reopen it, and we can just vote on it tonight, because there really isn't any more information, and we've been kicking this can down the road for a year. So I'll make a motion to amend item 2 of approving the,
Make a motion
To reconsider.
reconsider item 2.
Okay,
so let me ask this question.
would say all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Bill?
So, I was going to say is if we vote not to reopen it, does that mean it was just the way it was when we got in here this afternoon? That we wouldn't hear?
Yeah, we wouldn't,
Right.
Okay, so, oh well, we've already passed that point, so.
We
Oh,
did.
Now a motion to add 13 and 13A back to the agenda. would
Back
be
to the
appropriate.
agenda, which had been removed.
I'll make a motion to add 13 and 13A back to the agenda, which has been removed.
Okay, you need probably a roll call.
a roll call, that means,
You got to vote.
roll call means to me,
7 yes.
Okay, now, we are reopening item 13 and 13A. Yep.
And I
Item
do,
13 is the acceptance of real estate documents for the Wakanda Club for voluntary acquisition of property interest located at 3915 Fleur Drive for the Fleur Drive reconstruction. George Flagg Parkway to Watrous Avenue project. Council Communication number 19-118. A under that is approving a change order, number 1, with Synergy Contracting LLC for additional work on the Fleur Drive reconstruction from George Flagg Parkway to Watrous Avenue, Phase 1, northbound lanes, $357,409.45. And I'm assuming that change order is the sidewalk, Ms. Manning?
It is.
Okay.
and I'm going to move this. I want the folks who are concerned about the cost, there's a project that we're going to have a hearing on next, we just said it, for $230,000. So I found a place in the budget that's in the 3rd Ward that we can, I'm telling you, having listened to my constituents, this street is a street that should have sidewalks on both sides. And I'm willing to forego that other project in the 3rd Ward to get this done. And I'm asking for your help to get this done. The agreements expire after tonight. So if we don't act, if we're saying we need more time, we're going to have to go back and completely renegotiate things. The cost could be higher, So if cost is what is of concern, the cost could be higher if we do not act now. So I'm going to move
Just
item.
a point of clarification with that, because we always discussed that we would put the sidewalk from Watrous to the entrance. And I know that we've did eminent domain, and we've taken land on Southeast 14th to do some signage. And we paid them to do that, but it's went through court, and so we are still planning on doing that portion of it. So I think that's very important to connect the bus stop to that area, from Watrous to the entrance, like we all originally agreed upon and wanted to do. So you would have to go back to the golf course and negotiate that portion of the land from them, or we would just, explain to me how it works. I think I know how it works, but explain to me.
Well, they indicated that they did not want to negotiate that so that it would be a condemnation proceeding. So there would be.
So then it's fair market value what we give them, not what they're asking us.
Well,
We're going to spend legal fees on that piece.
legal fees would be added.
You're right.
They would do their appraisals, we would do ours.
Exactly.
We go through the whole condemnation process. And so you would be talking about $50,000, $60,000 possibly total.
To do that portion, and there's not much
to acquire
terrain
the
or-
land.
It's pretty much flat right through there.
And the existing construction contract has that segment being constructed in it. So you would not be adding any cost on the construction
That's
side.
right. Okay. So we would just have to go through the land acquisition for that portion of the land, but there would be no construction costs for that
It's
portion.
already included in the
Right.
contract, so absent that, we would be cutting it out of the contract.
Okay. I do feel strongly that it does need to go from Watrous to the entrance of Wakanda, because there is a bus stop there. And I feel very strongly that we go and get that land and we build it there.
So you'll spend the extra $60,000.
It has nothing to do with the dollars. That's the
But-
safest place to put it.
Well,
Has nothing to do with the dollars. I'm not going to have any more exchange with you about it. I mean, we've talked about it enough.
We could get it for less than 250,000.
Yeah, we're going to get it for less than
All
250,000.
right. If you're done, Josh, do you have a final comment here?
I mean, like I said, I'm willing to I found $230,000 in the budget for those who are concerned about cost. The folks who I have talked to, and I know there were folks from South Watrous who wanted to be here who could not, the people whose doors I knocked, the people who also live on Fleur, particularly those folks that were already doing between Park and Bell, they asked me when they got the notice from engineering, can you get this done across Wakanda? We've got a path. The folks at Wakanda worked with us on this. It's important from a public safety perspective. I really would appreciate the vote on this. And with that, I'll move 13A and 13A.
13 and 13A.
13 and 13A.
Josh?
Three yes, 4 no.
Okay. All right. That takes us to, I think, the ordinances first consideration, item 40. Item 40 is amending Chapter 42 of the Municipal Code regarding noise control, Council Communication Number 19-122. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to talk about noise control? Part of our municipal ordinance. Seeing none?
So,
Mayor,
Question about, this is for the Waterworks Park, correct? And this will allow, how late will the sound
Review
be?
and everything else, right?
12:30, wasn't it? 12:30 on the weekends?
References the Waterworks Park Amphitheater.
Yeah. that's
I'm sorry.
it.
That's what you're-
What happened?
I think it, doesn't it say 12:30?
Yeah, tell me, how late can the music be played at the concert that's going to be facing towards the neighborhood to the south? Because I think the stage faces, to the south. And I know Josh and the mayor and Councilman Coleman and myself, the last concert they had down there
Let us up.
was loud.
No, we heard.
Yeah,
Mayor?
I think everyone heard about it, so I'm just wondering if that's what we're approving tonight, to allow that?
We're not changing.
Mayor, members of City Council, Chris Johansson, Community Development Director. The permit's effective between the hours of 9 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Okay.
Just for that or for all performances around the city?
For those covered at Waterworks Park, Simon Estes, Brenton Skating Plaza, and other property owned by the city.
Okay, so would that include the streets?
If you need this type of
I'm
permit,
talking about
I don't know.
3580,
Yeah.
for instance.
It's what?
Mayor,
I didn't hear that, Mayor.
Other property owned by the
He's talking about 3580.
So-
downtown,
If it's other
downtown.
property owned by the city, that would, I would presume, include streets.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to specific. I don't know that.
there's a couple of issues that I had in fairness. Sam Carroll was here earlier, and he texted me and said that he had to go to a wake, and he had to leave after the long discussion we had before. He's asked, as has Tom Zmolik and Sam Summers, that we hold off on this week. I threw that out, or a meeting. I threw that out to Scott. I think there are two issues. One is the new amphitheater. But even with the new amphitheater, that's not where the 515 Alive is scheduled to be. And so how we measure it and from where are some issues. And as I understand it, the city already has a meeting set up with those three that are the primary promoters or sponsors of the concert series at Simon Estes, which are all at Brenton this year and next year, I think, because of the bridge construction. And then a lot of the concerts at the Waterworks Amphitheater. And so he texted me because he's gone, but I did hear from those other guys earlier, surprised that we were voting on it when they had a meeting set up, I think for, I want to say it's Thursday of this week. I don't know
Just
Oh,
for
wanna
sure.
move
There's
it.
3 readings,
There's 3 readings, yeah.
so we could.
Well, is there a reason that we can't continue it and not do any readings until we get more information?
Summer.
There's not. We don't see this as we're in agreement on this. We've been working with Waterworks throughout this. Once we heard back from them, which was just today or yesterday, I believe it was, kind of the idea was to keep moving forward with the 3 readings, just to keep us on schedule, but.
So don't waive the other readings.
Right, correct.
To make sure everybody gets an
Yep.
understanding.
Yep.
Which would include you looking up
The
whether it
streets,
includes the
yes,
streets and everything
definitely.
else.
Yep.
Riverview,
Sleepy Hollow.
Well, yeah, all
all
the
the-
festivals down there, they all play music past 11 o'clock.
oh yeah,
Well,
there's a lot of people living there.
And we allowed Sleepy Hollow
Yes.
a year ago, which is,
Yes.
and where as I understand it, there's some debate about the effectiveness of measuring it, the noise, where we have it, depending on,
Right.
like at Waterworks, where the concert is. They're not all going to be at the amphitheater.
Okay.
Right.
Well, and it's my understanding, I think, just heard from the city attorney, that that's Monday through Thursday till 11.
It's till
And to the
12:30.
weekends is 12:30.
12:30.
Yeah. That's what
Wow.
I thought. Yeah,
But that's current. order.
current.
But when-
Yeah, that's.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
My understanding is the Waterworks Foundation has agreed to limit all theirs to 11.
Okay.
I don't know why we wouldn't stop music at 11, no more than 12, but.
Well, at least, I mean, they
7
did
days
build
a
it,
week?
it does face
Yes.
south, correct?
Yes.
I didn't, I mean, it does face south.
And Mike, I mean, we're going to have to be, I think, flexible on this too. We might be revisiting this after the first or second concert there. As we see how that amphitheater works and how loud the noise is. We just need to be aware of that.
Well, and in some moments in the past, when they did it down further west, and then it came up through Greenwood Park, and heard from all those people up and down there, holy smokes, what are you allowing to have happen down here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear the music at Jasper Winery in my house, I don't know, Jeff. You might, so this'll likely be the same, I mean, that's, I think, a south-facing stage there.
I just mentioned that I take my hearing aids out.
So, can we continue it, and then we can waive the second and third reading when we get the next all the information on the 8th, and you have your meeting with those guys, and we're all in agreement, and then we can just do that, I mean, I'll move to continue it.
We can do it either way, I don't care.
I just recommend
I
doing the
just
one.
move it forward.
You would rather have,
One reading, and we'll hold off on that.
so
Okay,
if we don't agree after the one reading, then we can,
So you want to continue this item?
You can amend the second reading.
Yeah, that's true, you could even amend it.
okay, then I'll move item 40.
Okay, item 40 has been moved.
Seven yes.
All right. Amending Chapter 114 Municipal Code regarding traffic regulation changes as follows. Council Communication Number 19-139. A is a code modification related to vacation of East Railroad Avenue between Southeast 25th Court and Southeast 26th Court. B is code corrections to match field conditions. Woods on the river, Plat 9. C is parking restrictions Southeast 18th Street from East Lacona to King Avenue, and King Avenue from Southeast 18th to Southeast 18th Court. Anybody here like to speak to any of these items? Seeing none. Anybody like to move this?
I'll move 41 A, B, and C, and waive the second and third reading.
Means there's nobody here to,
Being there's no one's here to, and actually, came from the Neighborhood Association, the Southeast 18th one, so that was good.
Seven yes.
okay, item 42. Item 42 is amending Chapter 118 of the Municipal Code regarding qualifying practices and method of making rebate payments and use of stormwater charges outside the city limits. Council Communication Number 19-115. Is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the Public Works Director and requires 6 votes. Anybody here want to speak to this item regarding qualifying practices and method of making rebate payments, stormwater charges?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, and Jonathan, I got to tell you, thank you so much for getting this out here. I've been hitting a lot of the neighborhood meetings, and this is one of the hot topics that people want to see. And I think we're doing the best thing that we possibly can get done to get these people out of the swamp, so I'm going to move 42 and 42A. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a great step, and I think we should look at places to expand this. You know, we've got the first 4 neighborhoods. Let's look at other places where this makes sense.
Seven yes.
Item 43, which is amending Chapter 2 of the Municipal Code regarding the exceptions to procurement of goods and services under competitive bidding for requests for proposals process. Anybody here want to speak to this?
I'll move it.
It's been moved. Mr. Manager, as we think about how we procure and what we do, I hope that we are looking at that whole environment through an environmental lens on all this and looking at the companies that we deal with and make sure that they are good stewards as well. Okay.
Seven yes.
Item 44 from Michael Welch, 300 Walnut Street to speak regarding traffic concerns and plans for the intersection of Fifth and Walnut. Thanks for waiting, Michael.
Wow.
Quite an education tonight, right?
Yeah. I am Dr. Michael Welch at Skywalk Chiropractic at 300 Walnut Street, and my concern is the Blackbird project across the way. They had originally planned on doing the southeast corner of 7th and Walnut. They've since moved to the corner of 5th and Walnut, and I understand they have 2 years to construct their project right there. I'm concerned that you're going to allow them another year after that to connect the skywalks. My other concern is that they're going to build on the southeast corner, but there's no plans on the southwest corner. So we're going to have a hole in the ground for 2 years, or I guess I'm open for your input. So it means to me that you're going to tear something down. You're going to tear down a half a block. They're going to build on a quarter of the block. There's no plans on the southwest corner. So I waited this long to hear your answers.
Those are great questions, I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
I'd love the answer, too.
In addition to, there's a glut of vacant apartments downtown, that's according to Hubble. And so I'm guessing, I'm asking you guys right now, is this a great idea for Des Moines, or is this a half-baked, incomplete plan? I'll sit down and listen, unless you got any questions.
Yeah. I can try. Might need some help from Matt, but so we do not have a development agreement signed or agreed to by council on that site. The discussion has been 2 projects. You may be aware of that. The tower on the east, which you spoke of, and they are seeking hotel use on the west portion. And so we actually don't have anything agreed to at this point on the timing or the actual users of the west property.
Or the demolition?
Yeah, so
Or the demolition is to wait until that development agreement is known.
Okay.
And so we do have that agreement with them to not take it down
You're talking
until.
about Blackbird?
Yes.
Yes, that was the
That's-
property he's.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure, because I agree with you. I don't think we should have a big hole in the ground there.
Good.
That is, to me, not a subject we want to go down.
So we can make sure that even if there's not development immediately on the west side, that there's not a hole in the ground, but there would have to be temporary skywalks. I believe there's a 3-year requirement that would have to occur.
The construction, according to what I understand so far, is it's going to take them 2 years to construct the building, but you'd give them another year to connect the skywalk?
I think that's about right, yes.
It's 3 years.
So total 3 years. They need a year to connect the skywalk back up?
I would hope it would be sooner, but.
Bridge going south, materials over Walnut Street from the tower crane. So I know that Terry Burke and his team are working with Whites right now to minimize that disruption. So regardless of what happens at the Blackbird and Kaleidoscope site, and we will address that timing and everything there and the reconnection of the skywalk, even no matter what we do with Blackbird on their project at Kaleidoscope, there's still going to be some disruption. I don't know the schedule, but some disruption of the skywalk system related to the existing project going on in the southeast quadrant of that intersection. Again, city staff's working with Whites right now and with Blackbird's contractor to minimize that disruption, but there's no way to build 2 30-story buildings on the 2 intersections without having some disruption. And yes, I believe it's city ordinances, Jeff, you have 3 years to reopen a skywalk once you have it closed for any reason or another.
That sounds right. But
and certainly, if Blackbird can do their project in 2 years, they're going to have the skywalk all connected. It'll be integral to the construction of their project.
I just want to ask staff to look at that 3-year ordinance, because we've had numerous businesses downtown that have had a lot of heartburn over that piece. And some of them have even gone out of business because they're no longer connected, and that was their access, and they opened up based upon being on the skywalk and having traffic going by, and now they don't have it anymore.
Yeah, I think the Yonkers fire, fortunately, is the only time we've tested that 3-year time frame. Otherwise, the longest stretch we've gone with a disconnection was probably during the Hilton construction leading up to the event center, and that was about a 2-year disruption.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we're going to hit it here pretty soon, going into the old Kirkwood, and on the project we just talked
Yes.
about on the southeast corner
Yes.
of Fifth and Walnut. And we've already seen some closures as a result of that.
You are correct.
Yeah, thank you. I understand there's going to be temporary closings from the Capitol Square to the Kirkwood, which makes sense. As Justin told me, obviously when you're swinging steel around there, you're not going to have people walking the skywalk, so that totally makes sense. But as long as they are temporary, if you don't shut that thing down and tell me we're going to open up 2 years. We've been there 30 years. So we were there before they connected the federal building. So we've seen some changes. And again, that's why I got the gray hair. Well, anyway. And these late nights. Anyway,
Well,
thank you.
hopefully you have a good view at 300 Walnut.
Pardon me? I'm on the skywalk level, so,
Okay, all right.
yeah, so relatively. I look at the Kirkwood.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. All right, we have motion to receive and file as comments.
I'll move.
The Blackbird project was delayed. Thanks,
All right, Doctor, thank you for your patience in waiting here. Unless anybody has anything else, I think we've completed. Thank you all for attending.
That's how bad.
Until next time, we're adjourned.